movie next.
Cool.
So today's episode of Shockwaves is brought to you by Shudder.
Brought to you by AMC Networks, Shudder is not only a premium streaming video service, but an experience unlike any other. Created for fans of all degrees of thrillers, suspense, and horror, Shudder is home to the largest and fastest growing human-curated selection of high-quality, spine-tingling, and provocative films, TV series, and originals, and there's always something new and unexpected for Shudder members to explore.
New this week is Neil Gaiman's Likely Stories, adapted from the dark tales of author Neil Gaiman. This collection of distinct, odd, and brilliant short stories is both cinematic and strange. In each film, each character is compelled to share their story, and we're drawn into their very act of telling tall tales. While each episode has its own lead character, they are backed up by an ensemble cast that play across all 4 Bold and Originals films. If you enjoyed American Gods, Coraline, or Stardust, you'll love Neil Gaiman's Likely Stories.
Shudder is available for $4.99 a month or $49.99 with an annual membership, but our listeners can get a free month by entering promo code SHOCK at checkout.
Go to Shudder.com today and find the best collection of thrillers, suspense, and horror available to stream anywhere.
Today's episode of Shockwaves is also sponsored by Diabolic DVD. Check them out online at www.diabolicdvd.com. They are the #1 source for horror, cult, and strange films from around the world. The company is Movie Buff owned and operated. And if you are looking for rare, unique, and strange films, then you need to head over to Diabolic DVD. They are constantly updating their inventory and have plenty of movies that you won't find anywhere else. They revamped their website earlier this year, so ordering has never been easier. Even today, I was just on their site, and I was excited because they were taking pre-orders for both Death Dream, which is coming. I know, Death Dream, right, guys? And then I also stumbled across this one that I hadn't seen before, which isn't quite horror, but it looks really badass, which is a documentary on the origins of punk music called DOA Rite of Passage.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked really cool. Anyway, they're taking pre-orders on both of those. So definitely head over to diabolicdvd.com. You can also find them on Facebook, diabolicdvd.com on Facebook. So definitely check them out. The Shockwaves team loves them.
Okay, and welcome to episode number 66 of Shockwaves. I'm your host, Rob G. I'm sitting here with Mr. Elric.
I'm still here.
You're still here?
I'm
Yes.
still
He
here.
never left.
Nope, never left. Been sitting here since last week.
Can't say the same for Turk.
Turk is gone.
He
Still here.
is traveling.
He's off making movies. He's off making some Halloween movie for all you
really?
guys to enjoy.
Yeah.
That's what this trip's about?
And also, Rebekah McKendry's with us.
Hello, guys. How you
Hello.
doing?
Good, good. One hell of a week. A lot to talk about. Some cool guests. You know the drill at this point.
Yeah.
So let us jump right in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have been totally in television mode, and I'm glad that a lot of my shows are back. I'm not too sure how I feel about American Horror Story yet.
Episode 2, I think I'm done.
You think you're done?
I think you too.
On episode 2, things started to solidify that just seemed so silly and unrealistic that I was like, I don't know if I can do it.
So by the end of episode 2, and I mean, remember, these are hour-long episodes, they had done the, could what we're seeing be real? Or is it not real? Question about 5 times throughout that episode. And by the time that the 5th one came up and it like was the end of the episode, I was like, I don't even care if this is real or not anymore. I just don't care. And so I'm going to stick with it for a little bit longer. I am interested to see what they do with the holes phobia.
Oh, I can tell you what it was. And sometimes, you know what's funny about horror fans is we can see the most ridiculous things and stay with something. Like especially the holy fucking shit type movies where I could see like The Visitor and stick with it. But if I see something in a show like this that's treated, okay, so they own a cafe. And in the cafe is a fucking meat locker.
Oh my God, and they're carving.
A fucking butchery meat locker with giant carcasses hanging up. And I'm watching it going, I think I'm out of your show now because that is so stupidly feeling totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that made me go, you're just doing this because that will look cool in a show to have a carcasses hang out. But it's like Jump Cut with a giant meat locker.
Oh, God.
And
It's
I was
true.
like, I'm sorry, guys. I just don't think I can do it.
Yeah, even when we were watching it, we questioned that when we were like, is that even hygienic to be like slaughtering animals and having fecal matter in
And it's
the
a hipster
middle of the
cafe.
restaurant?
It's not like
yeah.
some butcher. So I don't know. It was little things sometimes that take you out of something. But yeah, I don't begrudge people who love them, like the people who are just fully into American Horror Story, because I think it's a certain type of horror that some people really love. That kind of.
Yeah.
It's playful, but it just I don't know.
I always love seeing where they go because it does kind of pull this batshit crazy stuff out of left field where all of a sudden they're like, and now aliens. And part of me is like, yes, I love that spirit, but it's just the execution is just, it's not working.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to stick with it for a couple more episodes and see where it goes.
All right.
Well, and it's not getting much word, but not when this episode airs. Next Friday, The Exorcist returns.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
even know that.
The trailer just dropped today, so it'll be 2 days by the time this airs. But there's a new trailer to the new season, which debuts Friday, September 29th. Weird. So the fact that it's on Friday nights means that they don't really care that much about it.
Oh, my God.
But hey, I'm excited.
Prequel, sequel, continuation.
Continues to
Wow.
the two priests. So
Nice.
I haven't watched the trailer yet, but everyone's been talking about it pretty positively. So I'm
And
looking,
tonight,
who would
in
have
our
thought?
time, as Channel Zero comes back. So
Oh, that's right.
Which I am so excited I can finally talk about because the guys know I watched the entire season like a month ago. Like we got a link to watch the whole season. So I watched the whole thing in like 2 nights and I haven't been able to talk with anybody about it. And
well,
so
wait till next week because then we'll watch the pilot.
It'll be relevant to next week because we'll have guests from it on as well.
I will say that I liked the first season, but it was very dense and heavy and gave me nightmares. This one is still dense and heavy and gave me nightmares, but it's a little bit more playful. I enjoyed
the first
it a
one
lot.
Playful wouldn't be what would jump to mind. You're right.
No.
But I loved it because it's just nightmare logic, pacing, and
I got to tell you the stuff that you web writers, you better try harder because I saw a post that I commented on before and it was actually shared by the showrunner of the show, the creator Nick Antosca, which basically is like it was like Channel Zero is the best show you're not watching.
Yeah, I saw that post.
not even out.
I commented. I was like, but it's out next week. Like,
Yeah.
of course I'm not watching it. Do you mean the first season? I don't understand the wording of your article.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it. I have it on my DVR.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
it's
Speaking
great.
of
I highly
controversial,
recommend it.
shitty articles, I mean, what about that John Carpenter slam piece? Did you
Oh, my
keep up with that?
God.
I remember.
Where was that posted?
No, it's apparently it's a satirical site, but like the idea,
It was
like,
shared in a way that everyone took it
well,
serious.
yeah, it was a satirical. Michael Felsher, who does a lot of these bonus feature stuff, he actually commented on the writer that wrote the original one, which is intended to be a satirical site of him like writing from people's points of view, but it was really the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like John Carpenter slamming Get Out because he thinks it ripped him off or something like that. It was done in a way that was not satirical, but it
was so flat.
Carpenter's been in the business for a long time, and he's doing a movie with that company, so I don't think he's going to slam them publicly for whatever. But a bunch of people, of course, picked up on it and started writing articles, and it's like, come on, guys, don't believe everything you read, especially if you can't find the source or if the source goes back to some satirical website that's supposed to be a joke.
But your average person won't dig deep. Like when I'm flicking through articles, I just saw the thing, read it, and went, wow, I don't know if I believe this, but they're saying Carpenter's a real asshole.
Well,
it's like a lot of people believe that.
Yeah. Well, I've actually, like unsubscribed from so many websites now that I don't have to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Because of that, because I'm tired of the titles and stuff. It's like, I just want to know about what I want to know and I want to watch what I want to watch. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. So what did you watch?
Speaking of, and hey, since I don't write for Blumhouse.com anymore, I won't get accused of being favorable, but I watched Insidious Chapter 3, which I haven't seen this entire time. I'd seen 1 and 2.
That's right.
Third one came out. I never got a chance to see it. I don't know why.
I never saw
it was just
3
a timing
either.
thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I kind of loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
How good was that bus scare when the bus hits the guy?
I couldn't
Dude, I jumped out of my fucking
I'll tell you what. All right. So me and my roommate watched it basically because we wanted to go. I haven't seen 1 and 2 in a long time. And I wanted to go chronological. I was like, oh, I hear the third one's a prequel. So we're like, let's watch this one tonight. And that way we can go back to 1 and 2. And so I loved it for that sake, for the fact that it kind of comes before them and it kind of sets up all the characters. And I thought, Lee Winnell wrote it and he wrote the other two and he directed this one. So I loved the way that he tied it into how we meet the characters in the first 2 movies. I thought that was really good. And the Insidious movies are really, they do the effective jump scare. There were 4 or 5 times, we had the lights out, we had it really loud, and there were 4 times I was like, literally we jumped. That one scene you mentioned is by far like one of the best.
It's one of the biggest jumps I've had, and a lot of it's sound and motion, but it's still a great gag. And I really like the old kind of cancerous, smoking.
Yeah, the villain was very scary. Yeah. And Lynn Shaye's amazing in it. It's kind of neat to see her get kind of be front and center in this franchise. But I really loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and now I'm going to go back and watch 1 and 2. But if you haven't seen it at this point, it's really, really good. And also before 4 comes out, because 4...
I don't know where 4 takes place in the line.
I don't either.
I haven't heard much about it.
I know, but am I allowed to say?
I don't think you are. I don't know if it's public knowledge.
Yes. All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
The distant future. What
about you, Elric?
Mother.
Okay, you went to see Mother.
So I won't go too heavily into it until Ryan's back. I know for a fact that Ryan loved it.
Ryan thought it was great.
I did not love it. I did not love it.
Wow.
I might be the target audience, but here's the thing. I found it really interesting. Look, Aronofsky is about as subtle as a sledgehammer, and that's how The Wrestler is the only film where I feel like he's kind of restraining himself. I love Black Swan. Requiem for a Dream is just, they're also kind of in your face. That's just what he does. And this film does it to even a larger degree in the last act. But this is basically a film. Now, I won't spoil things now, but it's pretty difficult to talk about without spoiling things. But it is a film that I felt is the most misleading marketing campaign of the year. And I think it hurts the film with viewers. I think viewers going in for a horror film, it is not a horror film in the traditional sense at all. And what it does, though, for me, and because it also marketed it to look like Rosemary's Baby with the poster, the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
It actually kind of hurts the film because as you're watching the first arc, you keep going, oh, okay, so I'm going to feel this kind of dread because I know what's going to come, and then I'll have this kind of horror thing. And because it isn't that movie, and it is a very different type of movie, it doesn't fit easily into any kind of categorization, which is cool. So there's a lot to be praised about this. I think it's an exciting experimentation, super bold, exactly the kind of filmmaking I want people to still be making. I just personally didn't really enjoy watching it in the last act. Did not land for me at all. The first 2 acts, I was like really into it. Like, oh, this is really good. It's like a dark black comedy almost. And then it goes to like somewhere very, very big, but it's super bold. It feels like almost a little too obvious for me at one point. But again, there's a lot. I've been talking in its defense. I've been talking about it for 4 days straight with people. And it's literally every day. It doesn't make me necessarily enjoy it more, but every time I talk to someone who has seen it, we just start talking about theories. And I realize, man, that's pretty fucking cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, wouldn't you rather debate a movie rather than just be like, I hate it, I loved it, I hate it, and that's it?
Somebody said it's the worst movie. There's a critic out there, like, a major critic. I can't remember which one. It's not Richard Brody, but one of them. And he's, first day was, this could be the worst film of all time. Now, the fact that a major critic says that's a badge of honor, because as I said to my students that day, if they're calling your movie the worst movie ever, I guarantee you it's not. The worst movie ever is a movie no one even noticed.
Yeah.
Because it's so vanilla and dull and nothing.
Yep.
Aronofsky's a provocateur, but he's also being very personal. He's delving into a million different things. And I think maybe this one might be a spoiler episode where like a couple of us, once everyone see it, just throw the shit around for like a little 10-minute thing, because I think it's a much more fun film to talk about. And I did tweet, and I kind of stand by it, that if it had been spoiled for me, I think I would have enjoyed it more, because I would have gone in going, oh yeah, it's not that kind of film, and then would have picked up more shit as it went. As it is, it's more like the halfway point you start going, about things.
Okay.
And
that's, I've been so busy I haven't had a chance to catch it, but and here's the fun thing. So they're saying that it didn't do well, and now Paramount is using that as their marketing. Yeah. And in fact, at my office today for my new job, my mysterious new job, one of my bosses is like, he's like, my wife doesn't like horror movies. You want to go? And she's like, we got to go see this Mother movie. And I'm like, see, it's working. I think it's actually going to do better in its second week. Yeah. Because, well, obviously it still had the juggernaut of It, which still did even more, just as much business the second weekend. And so now I think because everyone is talking about it.
Yeah, it's true.
I think it's going to be a word of mouth movie. I'm going to try to catch
I hope so. I hope it's not a failure, because if it's an abject failure, it's a real problem for movies.
Because I've had a transition with it too, where we had planned to go see it, go to the matinee on Saturday. And as soon as there was one headline that I read that morning that was like, Mother stands for motherfucker, I want my money back. And then I was like, well, if everyone hates it, I'm not going to go shell out $40 to go see it in the theater. And so we decided to hold off. But this whole week, all I've been hearing is these debates. And finally, I'm like, okay, I have to go see it now. Like,
you want in on that
Yeah, I want in on the
Let me put it this
conversation,
way.
guys.
The difference between this and It Comes at Night, for me, because It Comes at Night is really handsomely made, but the difference with It Comes at Night is it has the build-up, and then I feel like it ends. This movie totally delivers an ending. Like, this is not a movie that like skimps on giving you a last act. It's just a question of whether the last act, lands with you. Now, I could also imagine me coming full circle on a movie like this, like watching it again at some point, because even just thinking and talking about it is a lot of fun, and it's got a lot of different possibilities. It's just like his style is such a sledgehammer that at times I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. It's a little bit repetition throughout, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing once everyone's seen it. And just for the record, Turek literally said he loved it. So if that's the case, I think that's good. I think that's a good thing because it means that it's going to connect to some people.
And Ryan will be back next week. So I'm going to try to see it before then. And Bekah, you should try too.
Yeah, I'll try to hit him.
Yeah, we can talk a little more in
maybe
depth.
we will do a little bonus spoiler episode of it.
That'd be cool.
Let's see what else is on my list. So I've been in Stephen King mode because obviously with it happening, and I've been listening to the audiobook and just revisiting stuff. And, we did the George Romero episode where we mentioned the Dark Half and stuff like that. And so here's one I've been meaning to revisit since it originally came out, because I haven't seen it since then. And that is actually The Shining. And I'm actually talking about the 1997 Mick Garris version of The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry, Mick. I know you listen, so it's not going to be a harsh review or anything. No, I was fascinated by this because basically, continuing my debate from It, everyone loves the new It, and yet I don't think in spirit, it's the source material, but I don't think it adheres to it at all. Like, there's so many changes that they've done to it. And again, the more and more I think about it, the more I miss things from the book or the original TV movie. And so I'm like, well, everyone still loves it. It's still a successful Stephen King adaptation, although it's not a faithful one. And so I'm always curious about this because the original Shining, the Stanley Kubrick one, it's a classic in cinema. But it's often, King hates it. It's not a faithful adaptation of his.
Does he still? I know he did.
No, he does.
Oh, I always thought he might have changed.
Well, here's a funny story. So not too long ago on, Blumhouse.com, somebody had written an article about best Stephen King adaptations or something like that. And, the little image when you tweet, it shows the featured image. And so from the Blumhouse page, I think it was John Humphreys tweeted, "What's your favorite Stephen King adaptation?" And the photo was of the
two
twins
girls from
The Shining, and not even within 5 minutes, King replied, "Not that one," and like it blew up Twitter.
It blew up.
It's like he's still that pissed off about it, and it's so funny is that Stephen King replied.
And somebody ended up doing, I think it was EW or one of the bigger entertainment sites picked up an article that Stephen King had like dissed The Shining on our Twitter.
Yeah,
he was still angry about it.
So that's what I love about it. I think it's kind of funny that he hates it as much as he does, but you can't deny. Here's the thing. And it's I equate it to It is, it changes everything. The things that are iconic about The Shining, the Kubrick one, are all original to the Kubrick movie. The girls are new, the carpet, Jack with an axe is totally from the Phantom Carriage. There's all these little bits that you are just so used to being the iconography of The Shining, and yet they're not in the Shining book. Right. It is from the Kubrick movie. And so because I'm listening to the audiobook of It, I wanted to watch the Shining miniseries, which is literally 3 90-minute segments because it was a 3-night event. And so it's 90 minutes each segment. And it was written by Stephen King. So this is him himself adapting his own material. And I'd never read The Shining. I'm going to be, that's one of his books I've never read. So I don't know how great it is. It is dense.
It's great. It's dense.
And so,
I mean, it's a Stephen King book.
So I like the miniseries. I think if you can divorce it from your image of Jack, it's interesting in the sense that I love Steve Weber does.
And connected to It, right? He has a cameo.
Yeah.
He's one of the dads.
Who is?
Isn't Stephen Weber the dad?
Oh, I don't know about that.
In the new It movie?
Of the kid who dies, I thought he had a cameo.
Oh, I don't know about that. But because of this experience, he's gone on
Googling
to.
That.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now too. But because of this experience, no, he's not in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of this experience, he went on to do audiobooks and he reads It.
Oh, are you serious?
The version of It I'm listening to now is read by Stephen Weber. And so he's really good at it as Jack. And like, I remember when Mick was talking about this movie, he had just come off The Stand, and he originally offered it to the guy who's the lead. He's in Forrest Gump, and he's the lead of The Stand. Why am I drawing a blank?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Not Rob Lowe.
Gary.
No, Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise, thank you.
And Gary's first words, because Mick said, "Oh, we're doing a new adaptation of it based on the book," and he's like, "I don't know if I could step into Jack's shoes." And it's like, wow, I never even thought that would be an issue. And so I respect Steven Weber because he's really good in this, and he just made it his own. I also like Rebekah De Mornay because who doesn't? It's Rebekah De Mornay. And also there's people like Melvin Van Peebles is in it, and I really like. There's a Sam Raimi cameo that's kind of amazing because he's actually a pretty decent actor. The thing that kills me about this movie is probably the most important aspect is I can't stand the kid that plays Danny, and I think that kind of really puts a huge damper on it. The other thing is this. I don't know, and this is no disrespect to this version of The Shining, but I don't know if this can be adapted properly, like exactly the way Stephen King wants it to. And what I mean by that is King's problem with the Kubrick movie was always, Jack's crazy from the beginning, the moment you see the movie, whereas it's supposed to be kind of a parallel to alcoholism and the Jack in the book, his slow descent into madness. And so they try to do that in this TV version and illustrate it, but it's hard to show that. And, so there's moments when we were watching where he kind of went a little nutty and we're like, well, he just went nuts in a second there. And, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard when you're reading a novel and you're inside the characters' heads, you can kind of you could get dense and you can explain to them, you could explain to your audience, like kind of the conflict within. I think that's really hard to show on screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Kubrick adapted so many novels, including Lolita, and none of them are completely faithful, and they all are great movies, and it's because he understood that a film is not a book. Right. He really understands the unique qualities that make cinema work, and that is tough. I think it is really hard for any book to be translated that faithfully.
Yeah. And so I thought it was cool to revisit it because, again, I'd never read the book.
That's the dad. See how the face looks like Steven Weber?
His name is Jeffrey.
His face is the same kind of face.
Yeah, I could see it.
Weber.
Yeah.
Weird.
Easy to mix them up. But if you're kind of like me, kind of in King mode now between it and The Dark Tower and all this other stuff, it's kind of worth a watch. I got it on a really cheap DVD set. I could have bought it on its own for like $7, but for like $8, there was a set that had it, the TV movie, the 3 discs of The Shining, and the 2 discs of Salem's Lot, the Rob Lowe version, because they had redone that as a TV series too. And I don't think I've ever seen that. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to check all 3 of those out. So
nice.
Yeah. What else would you get?
All King.
Yeah.
I will say I've been, I also continued watching The Deuce, which is not horror. It's much more the origins of the porn. You just get.
It's not even close. I'm watching it too now, but I like it a lot.
You get like little glimpses of like the horror stuff, like Marquise
That's a
and
stretch.
things like that. But I was going to say it is a really fascinating look into the 42nd Street era.
Yeah,
like,
I like it so far. I think we're probably like a couple episodes before it gets into the filmmaking.
Yeah, like I'm now on the 2nd episode, and you just kind of got to the whole reels thing, and but if you're interested in kind of just the whole idea of 42nd Street and what New York was like during that time, this is a really good show to watch. I'm still confused by the 2 Francos. There's moments where I have to go, which one is this?
It's a classic trick that in the opening episode you make sure one of them gets beat up, so they have a scar on their forehead, so you can forever tell the difference. It has that scene where I'm like, I know why you're doing that.
Yes, it was totally there. But anyway, I recommend checking it out if that's kind of your one of your interest points into the Grindhouse era. But I revisited 47 Meters Down because I had gone to see it by myself when I saw it over the summer and just absolutely loved it. And then I made Dave watch it with me this week because I wanted to revisit it. And I definitely, the first time I saw it, I was like cheering in my seat because it's, giant sharks on screen and I'm just excited about that. Dave was definitely slightly more critical of it and made me see comments. Yeah. He was very confused by what he called the murderous wildlife, where literally, and I get that about how the shark is definitely going for it spends an hour and a half trying to beat its way into this cage for the most difficult meal. Like it could have eaten 12 seals by this point.
That's a very determined shark. What do you want?
I haven't seen it yet. I don't even really know the setup. Just give us the setup again? Because I kind of avoided this.
2 girls visit Mexico, decide to go cage diving.
Mandy Moore being one of them.
Mandy Moore. Yeah.
I'm in.
I know. And she's in a bathing suit the whole time. As soon as they hit the water, The line breaks. They drop down to the bottom of the ocean, which is 47 meters down.
And they have tanks to breathe. That's all.
Yeah, they have tanks, but they're limited. So, and at 47 meters down, there's like no light. Like it's very, very dark down there. And so all they can see, and it's below, they have walkie-talkies to talk to the boat, but the walkie-talkies don't work that far down. So in order to talk to the boat and find out like what's going on with their rescue, they have to swim up like 10 meters in order to talk to the boat. But as soon as they leave the cage, this big giant shark comes and tries to get them.
Better or worse? How do you rank it to what was on The Shallows?
Not as good as The Shallows, but has one of the best jump scares of the year. I swear. There's just this amazing jump scare in it that I won't get into. But like even the second time I had forgotten about it. I screamed in the theater. And the second time when I was watching it, I'd forgotten about it.
That's the kind of thing I enjoy watching on VOD. That's the kind of thing like when it comes to I get excited because I haven't seen it. Better or worse, Shark Night 3D?
Better.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Gotta
But
be.
still, but
It's a low
definitely
bar.
below bait, right? It's below bait.
Hey,
Bait's good.
I like
I
Bait.
think Bait's fun.
And I think this is good as well.
Okay.
It's a fun movie. You do have to suspend belief that the shark is going to spend an hour and a half of its life kind of beating at the cage trying to get to these two very sinewy girls. But yeah, as long as you can go with the murderous shark thing, then you're down.
I finally I got the Blu-ray of this. I've been meaning to see it. I missed in theaters, A Cure for Wellness.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I avoided it was because of the running time.
My God, it's like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
No, it's like 2:25. And so I was like, and I'm not usually in the mood to do that. But there's something about this movie. I was like, you know what? I just have a feeling this is going to be a good movie. Like I knew the visuals were great from the trailer, but people were so lukewarm on it. Okay, so this is the weird part about its running time. I've got to say this. This is not arbitrary at all. I'm not kidding when I say remove an hour and you wouldn't even lose anything.
None.
I mean, nothing.
No,
it does not need to be that long.
There is so much superfluous fluff in that movie.
It's real. And this isn't even like, oh, this is a bad movie. It's not a bad movie at all. I actually think it was rather enjoyable, but man, does it not need to be that long. I mean, this could have been an 85-minute movie and it wouldn't have felt any differently because there's nothing in the pacing. It's just like, I guess, a lot more buildup of someone going, I wonder what's happening. And I wonder what's happening over here. The visuals are really cool. I think the lead character is interesting. I think the world of it almost feels like the setup of like an Argento film in terms of like it's somewhere kind of like Phenomena. It's set in, it's set in Bavaria or something. Yeah,
it's like this pastoral international environment.
But it has a last act that I wasn't like. There's some cool, creepy. I think, to be honest, I'll go further and say I think that extra hour actually ruins the movie on a tension level because you can't really sustain that tension. And so because they keep throwing cool imagery and dread builds, they don't build to anything fast enough and therefore let you off the hook. So I actually think that there is a re-edit of this that somebody probably could make an actually really great scary movie out of, but they would have to kind of dive in there. But the last act goes, and this was only a deep cut for anyone who, and some of you will know this film, it kind of goes popcorn, a little popcorn, little Phantom of the Opera in its last act. And I really thought that was a lot of fun. But by the time you got there, you're a little just tired. It's not bad. It's just kind of tiring.
You know what else? This is A Cure for Wellness. I keep confusing this with The Girl with All the Gifts. I don't know why.
The Girl with All the Gifts is great.
Yeah, they both have titles that are so, like, they look similar, even though they're not similar.
I think they're both, this isn't a great title for this one either. It could just have been called, like, Wellness or The Cure or something. But there's a lot. Look, Gore Verbinski knows how to shoot a movie. It looks really good. It's just, I think there's too much of it. And I don't mean that arbitrary. Sometimes you like a movie's long. I still can like long movies. I just don't think this one was actually meant to be. I think its true form is 90-minute movie that might have done really well.
I don't know. I adhere to most movies need to be 90 minutes.
Yeah, most of the time.
Last night we were looking for something kind of fun and light, so we were going to watch the new Pirates of the Caribbean because I just got a screener copy of it, and I looked, and that one's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and it has no business.
No, but I mean, at least those, I'm not standing up for that with those, but at least they have all the scale and all these different scenes and lots of action. This is literally like one guy walking around a hospital.
It is.
So you're like, at what point did it need to be this long? And I would feel differently if there are long shots of him just walking around building up tension, but there's just like lots more of the same scene.
Yeah.
But I would love to see someone like make a kick-ass edit of it. But I kind of enjoyed it. Like, I didn't like it a lot because of the length. It's missing something. But it's definitely not a bad movie. And I think some people might really dig it still.
Wow.
Nice.
A Cure for Wellness.
All right.
Some cool serpents and just that kind of weird, it's not Lovecraft by any means, but it's just got imagery that makes you think
it's like Lair the White Wormy.
Yeah, there's something about it. Anyway.
Yeah.
You got anything else, Bekah?
Yeah. So as I've been mentioning, I'm teaching a couple of classes at USC this semester, so I'm spending a copious amount of time on the subway, like an hour and a half a day, which I'm loving because I'm actually like reading. And so yeah, fuck my car. I love the subway. And so this week I have been reading A Place for Sinners by Aaron Dries.
Aaron Dries.
Yeah.
Originally from Australia, a great author, and he's on episode, was it 100 of Killer POV?
It's our Texas Frightmare episode of Killer POV with Aaron Dries and AJ Bowen.
Yes.
And Aaron's a regular listener of the show. He became a really good friend of ours when he came from Australia to Texas Frightmare and hung out with him.
First Jump Cut Cafe, though.
And he
stole
came
my
to Jump
shirt, that
Cut
fucker.
first. And
My only Killer POV shirt. It's
we
gone
loved
today.
him so much that we ended up just like, come join us on the show while we're here. And we put him on the show. And he, a couple of probably about 6 months ago.
It looks like Marnie on the cover.
I know, right?
Marnie in a jacket. That's
it
weird.
does. A couple of maybe 6 months ago, he sent us all books, and he sent me one called A Place for Sinners. And I remember he put in this, like the note that he left in it, he was like, this is about bugs and a woman who thinks she's turning into a shark. You'll like it. And so I'm only halfway through, so I won't get too in depth, but I will have to say, this is a really fucking good book. So I have no idea where it's going yet, but I highly recommend checking out A Place for Sinners by Aaron Dries. It is about a girl who goes camping with her family when she's young. And this is no spoilers. It happens in the first 5 pages. And she gets attacked. She kind of strays away from her family and gets attacked by a pack of, I think they're wolves or coyotes, whatever dogs they have in Australia.
Dingoes, mate. Dingoes.
I'm not sure they were dingoes.
Oh, really?
They seemed more wolfen. So anyway, she gets attacked by a pack of dogs and she survives, but she loses her hearing and she becomes deaf. And then it kind of flashes to decades later. Her and her brother decide to take this trip to Thailand just to kind of try something different and experience the world on their own. And they then start encountering some weird stuff in Thailand. And so, yeah, it's great. And I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, he the irony is he's written enough books that he had one for each of us that he thought would be our
catered.
I feel guilty now because I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Aaron. I started reading the one he sent me, which was called The Fallen Boys, and it was really good. It just takes me forever, and I'm usually reading 3 books at the same time anyway. But I'm glad you started reading that one.
Yeah, so the subway is a beautiful thing because I literally sit there for 45 minutes and I can look at like the smelly guy across from me who's like drinking way too much soda, or I can just read. And so I read.
Nice.
And yeah, I've been burning through books. So yeah, A Place for Sinners.
Dingoes stole my hearing. Sounds good.
I got 2 more quick ones, and I'm going to keep them quick only because both are still technically on the festival circuit, and obviously that means that unless they play at a festival near you, you won't be able to see them. But I want to give you a heads up. One of them is a new movie called Imitation Girl, and this is from a female writer-director named Natasha Kermani, and it's not necessarily horror per se, but it stars Lauren Ashley Carter, who's in a ton of movies lately.
Jugface.
She's
Darling.
She's in a lot of Mickey Keaton's movies, but she's been popping up. She's in The Mind's Eye with, opposite Graham Skipper.
Oh, she's in The Woman. She's like awesome in The Woman. Yeah.
So she's just one of those actresses that first of all, she looks great on camera. There's just something about her that's like, that, you know, the camera loves, and she's been doing a lot of cool indie genre stuff. So I was kind of intrigued by that. And, so, I mean, I guess this is right up your alley, Elric, because I would venture to call it somewhat art house. I was just mesmerized. Like, there's not a lot that happens, but basically, this kind of black sludge spore thing or whatever it is, just like kind of flies into frame in the opening, and it basically attaches to the front cover of a porno magazine that has her image on it. And so it turns into her. It clones the first thing it sees. And so there's an alien version of her kind of walking around trying to figure out what human beings are all about. And then there's the real girl who is kind of struggling with her identity and like how she ended up in this adult world and all this kind of stuff. And obviously at some point they're going to merge, and cross paths. And, again, I mean, there's just something about it that I found really mesmerizing and kind of cool. And yeah, it made me curious. I was like, all right, this filmmaker, for her first film, it's just really interesting. And so I'm really excited to see what else she does. And I think she's planning a straight horror movie next. Cool. So that kind of excites me, getting to see a little glimpse of a new voice. And so, Imitation Girl, take a look out for that. And also, what Ryan spoke about this last week, the documentary To Hell and Back, the KANE Hodder story.
Oh yeah, cool.
It's great. It is really, really great. I mean, of course, we all know who KANE Hodder is. He played Jason. He's Victor Crowley in the Hatchet movies. He's been around and done a lot. This is based on his autobiography, or biography, also called To Hell and Back. And it's just really, again, a lot of the stuff that Ryan said last week, I'll reiterate. It's really emotional. You know, he tells the full story on camera of how he got his severe burns, and the kind of everything he had to go through after that is really unbelievable. He talks about himself as a young kid getting bullied, and you just get a lot of insight into a guy that you normally just look at as kind of a tough guy. And so to get to see this side of him is really, really fascinating. And then, of course, you know, meeting Sean Cunningham and Wes Craven and getting into that world and then really embracing the Jason role. And I've always thought it was, you know, as a kid growing up, he was my Jason because he was the one that was in all the ones I got to see on the big screen.
I figure you are Jason if you're on Arsenio Hall. That is Arsenio Jason.
I mean, so he got to be Arsenio Jason, and I always thought it was a sin that he wasn't in Freddy vs. Jason. That's what I was waiting for, was him and Robert Englund to fight each other.
I think a lot of fans did as well.
And, you know, some people have written it off like it's not a big deal. Ryan being one of them. And then last week he's like, you know what? After seeing the doc, I do think that's just like a shitty thing. And it is. And the way that they present it and the way he talks about it, it is a shitty thing. He should have done that movie. But it is, you know what? I love these kind of movies where you know, he's been on I met him at 14 years old at a Fangoria Weekend of Horrors, and I didn't know any of this stuff about him. And so when you get that kind of insight into a personality and realize there's much more to them than meets the eye, it's just, you know, it makes for good documentary stuff. So, keep an eye out. That's definitely still festival circuit stuff. It's got to be coming within the next year. And I think everybody's going to love it.
And because the Turek isn't here today, I'll give his pitch for Slashback. Announced that they are doing the spin around covers on Sundays.
Yes.
And I think it's half price.
With your membership card.
Yeah.
So he can't plug it, but I think if you've already been, that could be a really fun way to see it again. And I know I have to go back for that because there's a lot of ones I didn't know and I was just very curious but couldn't touch it. So so I'm glad they're doing that. So I think that'll be super cool. It'd just be only a bummer if you came only on that Sunday and could never see the
fronts.
So make sure it's a 2-day trip.
Very cool. Anything else from you guys?
No, we're good. I mean, we got a couple guests who made one of my favorite movies of the year so far coming up in a second. So
long-time listeners too.
Long-time listeners, yep.
Cool. All right, let's bring them on. Today's episode of Shockwaves is brought to you by Shudder.
Brought to you by AMC Networks. Shudder is not only a premium streaming video service, but an experience unlike any other. Created for fans of all degrees of thrillers, suspense, and horror, Shudder is home to the largest and fastest growing human-curated selection of high-quality, spine-tingling, and provocative films, TV series, and originals, and there's always something new and unexpected for Shudder members to explore.
New this week is Neil Gaiman's Likely Stories, adapted from the dark tales of author Neil Gaiman. This collection of distinct, odd, and brilliant short stories is both cinematic and strange. In each film, each character is compelled to share their story, and we're drawn into their very act of telling tall tales. While each episode has its own lead character, they are backed up by an ensemble cast that play across all 4 bold and originals films. If you enjoyed American Gods, Coraline, or Stardust, you'll love Neil Gaiman's Likely Stories.
Shudder is available for $4.99 a month or $49.99 with an annual membership, but our listeners can get a free month by entering promo code SHOCK at checkout.
Go to Shudder.com today and find the best collection of thrillers, suspense, and horror available to stream anywhere.
Today's episode of Shockwaves is also sponsored by Diabolic DVD. Check them out online at www.diabolicdvd.com. They are the #1 source for horror, cult, and strange films from around the world. The company is Movie Buff owned and operated. And if you are looking for rare, unique, and strange films, then you need to head over to Diabolic DVD. They are constantly updating their inventory and have plenty of movies that you won't find anywhere else. They revamped their website earlier this year, so ordering has never been easier. Even today, I was just on their site and I was excited because they were taking pre-orders for both Death Dream, which is coming. I know, Death Dream, right, guys? And then I also stumbled across this one that I hadn't seen before, which isn't quite horror, but it looks really badass, which is a documentary on the origins of punk music called DOA Rite of Passage.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked really cool. Anyway, they're taking pre-orders on both of those. So definitely head over to diabolicdvd.com. You can also find them on Facebook, diabolicdvd.com on Facebook. So definitely check them out. The Shockwaves team loves them.
Welcome back to the show. Today we're very excited. We have the co-writers of Super Dark Times, which is absolutely one of my favorite movies. Forget just horror films, just one of my favorite movies of the year, period, which is rare when it's by friends of yours. Usually you have to lie to them. In this case, I didn't, which felt wonderful. And then Luke Piotrowski and Benjamin Collins, one of which I went to film school with and one who I now am a neighbor to. It's what a wonderful world.
Small world.
It's great, yeah.
And somehow, I don't know who's patient zero, but I know Ben listened to Killer POV.
I did.
Who listened first between you?
That was Ben.
Yeah.
He told me I got this friend from college who's got this horror podcast, and I think it was Kill List was what you were trying to sell me on.
Oh, that's such a great movie.
He had introduced you to that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was exciting when I finally moved out here because I'd been listening to Killer POV up until that point, and I was looking for a place to live, and you were suggesting areas, and you said, oh, well, Elric just moved to this area, like you should get in touch with him. So I was at the hotel, and like Elric called me, and I was like, oh, it's the voice from the podcast.
Elric called you to try to sell you on Santa
Yes,
Clarita.
he did.
This was all a master plan of mine, by the way. Because he was looking at all these crazy areas, and I was like, well, that's cool and all, but I don't know who's there. I don't know the kind of weird people. And I was like, well, I know Elric's cool, and they'll get along once I just get them in the same, so it was all definitely like intentional.
Elric calls any newcomers to Los Angeles like Santa Clarita.
Yeah. To bring this full circle, we just saw Mother together on the weekend. So
it's a beautiful.
That's a bonding experience.
That's going to happen. But let's start where Rob likes to start. Let's start at the start because I don't know everything about how you guys started writing, and we'll get into the projects as we hit them.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, the earliest horror recollections. What made you fall in love with this stuff? What was the one that turned you to the dark side, and you're like, "Yep, I'm going to keep watching these."
Well, I know for me,
the
first movie I remember ever seeing in the movie theater was Gremlins, and I insisted, and I was born in 81, and that was 84, so I was really little, but I remembered demanding to see that movie.
And your parents took you willingly?
They did.
His parents are really cool.
I was so young that there was a trailer in front of the movie about like some sort of like murder at a convent or something, and I thought it was part of the movie. So they're talking about like blood on the sheets.
Name of the Rose, or
maybe something. I have to look at the.
Yeah.
I have to look at the timeline.
It was around the same
Christian
time.
Slater and
But I remember turning
stuff.
to my mother and being like, "It's Stripe. That's why there's blood on the sheets."
You bought into it full on, and that's in Georgia, right?
This was in Illinois. I'm from Illinois originally.
And your parents are totally, because what's funny about Gremlins is it was marketed as a kids movie, but I love basically when the microwave scene happens, like there's a group of parents are like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh fuck that, the chimney story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, that never registered to me. I think I still believed in Santa Claus for many years after that. I didn't never really make the connection.
It was when you were like a teenager, like, man, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
What happened to Phoebe Kid's dad?
Yeah, I don't think I saw Gremlins till college actually, and I had the reactions like, wow, I cannot believe, but
And also, that movie's fucking great. That
it
was
is
the other
phenomenal.
reaction.
Did it scare you, though, Luke?
I was prepared to be scared, and so there's you're sort of worried about it and trying to cover my eyes, like when he's multiplying and being prepared. But there's the moment when Zach Galligan puts his head back against the counter at the college and it pops out of the cabinet, and there's no way to prepare yourself for that moment. So I saw it full out, totally brightly lit, and then I was like, oh, that's not scary, that's cool. And from that point on, I was fine. But all the lead up, I was more scared. But once the scare happened that I could no way prepare myself for, I was on board.
But you weren't. I mean, you're not typically scared of movies, and I mean, at that age, probably not even.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Candyman messed me up.
Okay, sure.
And The Shining messed me up as as an older person.
Yeah, that's where I would. Yeah, because for me, it was. If I had to say, probably images of Freddy Krueger. I have a very vivid memory of being, I believe, 5 and walking into my living room in my house in Georgia, the first house we lived in, and like. I think Freddy 3 was on because it was the girl with the switchblade and stuff. And like walking in, it was like, like we didn't have cable. So it's like antennas. So it's like really like staticky and shitty. And like you'd heard about Freddy Krueger, but like I was like, oh my God, that's what this is. And I remember like hiding in the hallway and kind of like peering around the doorway to just watch at like probably like a 20-foot distance on a 19-inch TV screen, but was so attracted to it. And that was always the thing, is like I was different from I was scared shitless of everything, but I wanted to see it so badly. And The Shining was the big one when I was like 7 or 8.
Wow,
I saw The Shining on TBS, which of course is edited for content, and probably only saw like half of it, and then did not sleep with the lights off for like a week.
And every gets the twist, the red rum twist.
I don't even. I mean, I probably came in the middle of it or something like that. And like, but every time it would come on TV, I would watch whatever I could, get super scared, sleep with the lights on for a week. I would go to the bookstore. I probably looked like the scariest little kid in a horror movie, because I'd go to the bookstore, go straight to the Stephen King section, and as soon as I was able to read, just like read the backs of the books and like open them up and read like a page, and then get scared and put it and run to the comic book section or something. And like, so it was always this sort of like, I want it, but it scares me, and I'll be nightmares and all this stuff. And my parents would like, my dad would have to come in at like 3 a.m. and be like, you got to go to sleep, kind of thing. And it was like a problem, to him, as a parent, that his son is like scaring himself so badly, but won't stop doing it. So do you remember when you guys started? When you started to turn that corner of it empowering you by watching and actually enjoying it, not just being scared anymore? Well, for me, it was middle school for sure. I mean, I was always watching them and stuff, but by the time I got to like
you were
grade,
still a bit of a scaredy cat when we met.
Oh, absolutely.
We were.
But I was watching tons of them.
No, for sure. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that too. But
what age was that? When did you guys?
Yeah.
Oh, I was a freshman we lived in the same neighborhood when we were very young, but didn't know each other. And when I was a freshman in high school, we became friends. I believe our first interaction was you were wearing an Evil Dead t-shirt. And I walked up to him like after school when you're waiting to get picked up by cars, and he was already driving, I think. So he was like walking around, and I was like waiting for my mom to get me. And I just see this guy with the Evil Dead shirt, and I'm like, cool shirt, man, or something. Like, I don't remember exactly what I said. I was probably very like, nervous because he was a senior and I was a freshman, and it was like a big deal to do that. But
I didn't discriminate.
No, I mean, we became friends, so I guess not.
Yeah. And you came over to my house and we dug a hole in the backyard. Ate pizza and watched Dead Alive.
Hold on, explain the hole in the backyard.
Something to do.
It sounds like the gate.
Oh, totally.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like,
let's dig a hole and see if we can find a portal to hell.
Let's dig a hole.
We were good kids, so when it was like, man, let's go do something, it was like, let's go dig a hole.
I couldn't even tell you why. It just was a thing. But specifically he had the unrated VHS of Dead Alive, which if you remember, I don't know where you guys were at that point, but like you had to go. I mean, like, you could buy that at like Camelot Music or something like that.
Theatrical, baby. In New Zealand is all theatrical.
Was it uncut theatrically?
Yeah, it was brain dead. It was just like the full.
No, it was a hard thing to get your hands on, and he had it. He told me about it, and I was like, "Fuck, I got to see that." So that was the first time we hung out. As I went over to his house and we watched that, and ate pizza while doing it, which is like not a very good movie to eat like red sauce and cheese.
No, because your mother ate my dog.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
And we had some custard.
I love that scene.
But so that was our sort of bonding thing. But it was around that time for me where I was like literally, it was like when Blockbuster started that thing where like they had the gold cards. You guys remember this? Where it's like if you were like a really active customer, they were like, oh, now you're a Blockbuster Rewards Gold member, which meant you got one free rental for every rental. Monday through Thursday.
Whoa.
And then
it was a really confusing scenario because you would pay extra for it, but usually when you would want to rent movies, like it meant nothing Friday through Saturday.
Exactly.
And so it was, and like you would get like free candy once a month.
Include like a popcorn.
It
was microwavable popcorn.
It was like an early version of now what every movie theater has, where you're like, oh, you're a Marklight member or an AMC whatever thing. But so like I would literally with my friends, I would rent 2 horror movies for every like Friday and Saturday and watch. I'd have a friend come over and that's all we would do. And that was for like 2 years or something.
I think that's all our childhoods.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I remember.
My friend had a teenage sister who, when I was little, this is when I lived in Illinois. So this was, elementary school, but she had a little up in her room, which had, a very distinct, perfumey smell. There was this cabinet, and in it, she had the, horror movies that they had, bootlegged off of, from renting or taped off TV or whatever. And it was they would be different every time. So that was how I saw like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and stuff. It's like, let's go up to Tracy's room and like go through her stuff and like get their movies.
Did she edit out the commercials? Because I would try to edit out the commercials, but then like when I would go back and watch them in college, I would suddenly be like, there's a commercial for like Duracell batteries and things like that right in the middle.
No, I kind of would have liked that. I think it was a lot of, renting it and then dubbing it or HBO kind of shit.
My parents were the most...
did it on EP so you can fit like 4 freaking movies on the thing.
Oh my God.
Quality.
He was very hardlined about that.
I was a stickler for quality.
Yeah.
My parents were so like, I cannot believe that they did as much as they did. They would rent shit that they would never freaking watch just to go ahead and copy it. And they still have them all. So when I go home, there is a closet in their living room that is filled with these EPs, but they all have 4 movies on them. Jesus. And they make no sense. It's like Soylent Green, Oh Heavenly Dog. No one watched it.
It's just the sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, but I specifically remember Soylent Green, Oh Heavenly Dog, Cannonball Run, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, all on the same thing. And because it's on...
When you call your parents here,
you can find that tape. Ken Wiederhorn.
I will bring that one back for you guys. Yeah. But because they're all on the same tape, and all I ever wanted to watch was Return of the Living Dead 2, which is a little weird to begin with, but I always wanted to watch that one.
Sure.
You would have to fast forward through Soylent Green, Oh Heavenly Dog, and Cannonball Run.
Do not fast forward Cannonball Run. You watch Cannonball Run. When you get to Cannonball Run, you watch that.
You sound like Dave now.
Every time.
Your parents should program the new Beverly.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Oh my God.
Her dad was Tarantino.
And I learned early on. So my parents were like crafty with this too, where at first it was just putting the Scotch tape over where they would take the little chip out. But then after a while, we had a device that actually went down inside of our VHS player that would like circumvent the copy guard.
Really?
I don't even know where the fuck they got this
You're
from.
selling your parents out.
I know, right? They haven't done it since
that's like back at the electronics store. Like, I got some shit. Like Doug figured something out. You gotta don't tell anyone.
And literally, that's what it was. It was like a little device, and they still have the VCR player with it in it, and it will circumvent copyright guard.
Yeah, there was something Luke said I don't want to forget, which was SP or die. So somebody out there, please make a graphic of like an old like TV with a pause. So like there's like static that says SP or die. Because I will totally wear that as a shirt.
I would actually just love to see an image comparison. It like because you were the first person to tell me like that no, it must be done this way, and I was like, what's the fucking difference? And I've never seen. I'd love to see like a single still, like how degraded is it actually that bad? I
gave up the end credits of Tim Burton's Batman. I was like, we're just gonna lose the credits. There's not room
for high quality. Yeah, that's hilarious.
But Beta was higher quality than all of them.
It was. My parents had. We were Beta.
Wow.
We were
a Beta family.
Interesting.
We were for a little bit, and then
top
we tried
loading
VHS. We had the top loading VCR.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We had one of the like when VCRs were 2 parts.
Oh, sure.
It was like the thing and then the one you put the tape in. That was a freaking nightmare. Especially when that was our first camcorder as well.
Oh,
so you needed to like have both of them around both shoulders.
You got like one of those Ghostbusters packs on to use the camcorder.
Yeah.
It's just too easy to watch movies now.
I know.
I think that's where it's really gone downhill.
I'm so happy.
But there's nothing invested. Like,
well, the irony is like I'm a shit. Like EP was when I was a kid, but now like it's got to be Blu-ray.
Sure.
Yeah.
And my parents asked if I wanted. They still have our first VHS that we ever got, the VCR that we ever got, and Mom asked if I wanted it. The thing weighs like 80 pounds. It's the size of like a microwave.
I would think so.
The entire top comes up when you want to put a tape in, and it's got a remote control, but it's tethered.
Oh, sure.
So it's like I don't even think I could ship this thing back in like
you gotta
justify.
Crank it. Somebody has to stand by the machine
and crank VHS.
Well, you could drive it back.
Exactly. Right.
I can't justify the expense of FedExing that thing.
Yeah,
I mean, beast.
It's definitely like I didn't have one for a long time, but I bought one on eBay not too long ago, and it's nice. There's some movies do still look pretty good on VHS. I don't know, like E.T. on VHS as like. I'm not big on nostalgia, but like that is something that because it feels like what you saw it as a kid and stuff.
And there are some films not ruined, but that don't quite translate. Some monster movies quite well to
HD. Well, no,
we see too much.
When I bought the VCR,
see that 4K rawhead rag.
No, that's when I bought the VCR. That was the first thing I bought. Was like I was like,
oh, did you watch it yet?
Yeah, Yeah, I was like, I'm going to get Rawhead Rex on VHS because I don't want to see that shit. Like, I mean, I do want to see it, good, but like, it looks right that way.
Right. Yeah,
His receding hairline is shiny on DVD.
Yeah, but we must have some fuzzy image nostalgia memories. Like some of our memories of movies would have actually been born in this kind of fuzzier space, which is just weird to think.
But you and I talked about this with Possession because I had only ever seen Possession.
Oh, like the American cut or whatever?
I'd only ever seen it on VHS. And so then it was like the very first time Elric and I like hung out together.
Yeah, before we knew each other.
Yeah, I got you a free ticket to go to the Possession screening. At Cinefamily. They were showing the 35 millimeter.
Yeah, I was at a bunch of those.
And I commented afterwards, I don't think I had ever seen the monster. Because it was just like this writhing black
like
kind of tentacly thing in the corner.
And lucky in that case, it works both ways because it's Carlo
cool
Rambaldi,
monster.
but not everyone had Carlo Rambaldi in the 80s.
Yeah.
There's some pretty bad monsters.
No, sure.
But that one, afterwards, I was like, oh, that's what the monster looked like.
And it looks fucking amazing.
It's always like black gooey tentacle thing in the corner. Yeah,
I always worry
awesome.
that people are going to overcorrect though when they get, because now they can control color, they can go in there and do all this stuff. I always worry they're going to now fiddle with their movie and actually change how.
Well, they did it with Possession, remember? And there's all that stuff about the color,
different.
and I'm fine with it. Like your eye gets used to it, and then you forget. But it does look different.
It looks good either way. It's much warmer now, and it was a cold blue. The version.
I go either way.
The director claims that it was never blue. That was just a mistake on the transfer.
It kind of made me feel like I was having to choose between the two different versions of Isabella Adjani in the movie because one of them is sort of like green and brown, and the other one's like blue and black. And when they did the coloring, I'm like, oh well, they're choosing that one. Like,
as long
it kind of made me feel like that.
As long as the socks are pink.
Very much.
Which, and just by the way, Brian Collins wrote to me just before the show started, sent me a Twitter that Sam Neils responded to somebody today who asked him, "Are the socks still pink?" And he goes, "I no longer work for the East Berlin Spy Center." And I was like, "Whoa!" And this makes me think he's on the verge of spelling everything.
I
think he's gonna, because he started to give out a little bit. Probably Twitter's kind of loosening him up.
And, he's been very active on Twitter in like the best and funniest way. So maybe
he just had a birthday too, right?
Yeah, he just turned 70. Wow. So maybe he's just like
it's time for.
The problem is it's a Johnny he obviously doesn't want to talk about. So it's like I can't wait. I'm just so curious. Because it's pitched like no other movie in terms of acting. So you're like, what was actually happening behind the scenes, like between these two people? It's phenomenal. But you guys right. Some segues are meant to happen.
Right, I hear.
When did it start? How young were you guys when you decided to actually try to write something together?
Together?
Yeah, as a collaboration.
That's a weird one in that, because again, I'm a little bit older than him. So I graduated high school and he was still there, and I went off to college and I went to Savannah College of Art and Design.
But before that, when we met, we did make video. We did work on a video project in high school together that I acted in, and you also acted in, but I was like the lead in it or whatever. And so sort of wrote together, I guess.
Sure. Well, Average Joe, as much as you can count, Average Joe Saves the Day. Yeah. The drama assignment video. As a collaboration.
But that's going to be an extra on Super Dark Time?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I wish.
But it is worth saying that he was the first person that explained to me that moving the camera in between, because it's like I feel like everybody, if you get interested in movies, there's still kind of a line to cross to go how are they actually made? You watch it and you can appreciate it. But when he was like, no, so we do the close up and then we move the camera over, and I was like, oh, what the fuck?
Right.
Because I've been making skateboard videos or whatever I've been doing, and been interested in it. So he taught me when I was a freshman, and then now you can pick up where you left off.
I think there's a rotating De Palma Carrie at the prom shot of you walking with your coffee mug.
Oh yeah.
And I'm circling around.
Yeah. He was into some fancy stuff
aesthetic.
At that point, but
inappropriate for the scene. But
yeah.
But I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design for a year, which you guys are familiar with. And I couldn't quite network because I'm not terribly sociable or good at that sort of thing. So I could write, but I couldn't, find a lighting guy and find a camera guy and collaborate with them and make it happen exactly. So it was I got scared and bugged out and went to study British literature at a different school, as you do. And then after I was gone, Ben went to Savannah College of Art and Design and could do all that shit and did. And it wasn't until you graduated that we actually started to, okay, let's do something together then.
Yeah. Because it's you get out of film school and you're like, what the fuck do I do with myself? How to, and so he was already had a job and had a house and had a wife. And I was just, what the fuck do I do? So I moved back in with my dad and it was I guess I'm going to work at a warehouse and try and write scripts. And he was miserable being a teacher and trying to write short stories
Very
and stuff.
miserable.
And it was like, well, we could just sort of combine our, deficiencies into one working
Well, I think,
whole.
you always sort of described it as that you would start, like, what was it?
Well, it's like I'm more like ADD and will like, I can get an idea and get really engaged in it and do like the sloppiest version possible and be like, yep, I did it. Great. And then it's like, and then Luke's a perfectionist that will spend, years and years to make one thing perfect. And that it's kind of like his perfectionism can make my stuff better, and my forcing him to be more loose and
Will
have to think
make
about
me
different
actually
things.
finish things.
Yeah. So in theory it works, or it's working so far. I hope so.
And what was the first thing that you collaborated on together that got attention? Like, did it take a while for you both to get into that groove and then for people to notice it?
Well, the very first thing we wrote together was a feature screenplay, and it will never be made or anything, but it was a thing that we just wrote together back in Georgia, and then I moved to LA.
Wait, is this The King and I?
No, this is before that even. This is
I was going to say, that's going to get made.
Well, who knows? Maybe.
I love that.
That was the second thing. But so we came out. I came out to LA with this script, The Second Sister, and that was sort of like our thing we were really proud of. And nothing happened for like about a year and a half or so. But then when we finally did meet our friend Emerson, who is now our agent, that was one of the first things that he really, and that was like our first like sample around town. So how long did it take for something to happen? Well,
a little bit longer.
Yeah, we met a lot of people, and people said their scripts were fun, but nobody was going to make. It's like you sort of do that whole thing, and it took, I don't know, like 5 years.
And you had one on the blood list for a long time, right?
Yeah, Stephanie was on the blood list, and that was the other one that sort of got us in through the door, and that was one that we wrote the first year I was in LA. So this is all like 2009, 2010 kind of era. So
it was at least 5 years before something. Wow. Okay.
I mean, we got paid little bits here and there, but like that was really like 5 years is really when.
There's a lot of projects that come and go that you work on and write and maybe even get paid a tiny bit for that they just disappear.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it starts, like in terms of the production of things that you've written, suddenly it all seems like it sprouted kind of once.
Oh, yeah.
Because like a year ago?
We had 3 movies happening at once.
Yeah, 2015 we
and writing 3 more, and then those 3 got done, and those 3 that we were writing, I guess they're not. Who knows what's happening with them? So.
But so it was Siren. So we've talked about Siren on the show. Was that the first one?
Well, Stephanie was the first one that shot. That was a Blumhouse movie.
Yeah.
But that was like spring of 2015. Then summer of 2015 was Siren with Greg Bishop and all that stuff. And then fall winter was Super Dark Times. So 2015 was when it like just fucking went insane.
And the fact that 3 are happening back to back has nothing to do with any heat or anything, right? They're not reacting off each other. It's just purely random.
No.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
It's Hollywood. You just throw everything that you can out there at all times.
Yep.
And you'll spend years with nothing, and then 3 things will happen.
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah. I mean, I wish, and we were so stoked at the time. It's like, man, I wish every year we'll do 3 movies. Maybe we'll do 4. And, it's like, well.
Stephanie hasn't come out yet, so there's still one to come.
Yeah.
Sure. There's a couple, like might shoot, but who knows?
Yeah.
You cast your spores to the wind. And
what was walk us through a little bit of the development of not Stephanie, Siren, because obviously you guys like Bruckner showed you Amateur Night. I guess is that how this all started?
Yeah, we saw. Well, our
manager Nate is also Bruckner's manager, so he sort of. Well, the whole story is that I get a call from Nate from the airport at Sundance after VHS had premiered, and he called and was like, "It's like, this is a great year." I'm like, "Oh, did you like sign some people, or did you see some good movies?" And he walked me through the entirety of Amateur Night. It's like, that's this short from this thing VHS, and I was like, I think I heard of this, and like told me the whole thing. Is like, this guy David Bruckner, I'm signing him, he's so great, and blah blah blah. You guys got to meet him. And then it's like cut to a couple months later, and I met him because he was out here visiting. It was total coincidence that he's from Atlanta, and Luke was still living there at the time.
So I met him in Atlanta. Sure.
Yeah, so it was like this whole weird thing where like Nate kind of set us up to be friends, and it totally worked because he's got great instincts, because that's what a manager needs. Great guy. But that's kind of how that sort of we kind of became friends, and then I guess it's worth. I mean, it's not like this isn't like any tales out of school. Jeremy Slater was supposed to write that movie. And he was like attached to write Siren, and they hadn't done anything yet, but he had gotten the job.
He'd done a treatment or something.
Or he'd pitched or
We were
something.
just talking about him before, right? With the
new
Exorcist show
season,
starts next
yeah.
week.
So he literally left Siren to go write Fantastic Four. And so it was like, I think in our minds, not that we were like gunning to do Fantastic Four 2 or whatever, but it's like, oh man, like you go from this little thing to doing like giant movies, And Slater can tell you all about, how fun that was for him. But I think it was like that sort of left an opening, and Nate was like, I think I can get you guys in there, like if Bruckner's down with it. So we started hanging out with Bruckner and talking it.
And we saw Amateur Night. I saw Amateur Night just completely out of context as its own little short film because VHS hadn't been released yet. So we just got a link to that and sort of, how do you turn that into a feature? And we had lots of different ideas and versions. Yeah. And, like at first we were like, does it have to be found footage? Like, and how do we do that?
Yeah.
And then
that must have been a big choice to move away from that.
It was huge. I mean, that was,
but really no choice.
Was
at
Bruckner
all.
really supportive of that, or did he?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to him that was really like, he was interested even, and I'm speaking for Bruckner. Hi, Dave. Like that, if I remember correctly, he was really more interested in the themes of Amateur Night and less of the technique of it, and that the technique was sort of a means to an end for him. So as soon as we were sort of like ready to move away from that, he's like, yeah, then we can get into those themes
and what was
stuff.
Great about him is that we pitched this whole version, and it was more like the ET version, where it was an adolescent boy who like hid the sex monster in his house, and it was this weird metaphor for masturbation and burgeoning sexuality, all that stuff. And he, Bruckner was like, I like you guys. This is not the version that we're doing, but I like you, and let's keep talking about.
We
different
pitched
ideas.
that to the producers too. Like we got the job off of that pitch, and we thought like, oh great, we're just gonna go write this like weird ET sex monster thing, and then immediately Bruckner's just like, yeah, I don't think. Let's keep talking and working, and it was about a year of those conversations with him, and I mean, it almost
that he was wrong.
So
on
what
that
happened to the
I still believe, I still believe in that movie.
Yeah.
It could be something. Yeah, I don't know, Luke. What are you doing later on the night? Should we, go to a strip club and talk about it? I don't know. That's not going to happen. But no, but like
I've never been to a strip club.
That was my greatest shame, watching your movie on the screen. I was sitting there and their movie's on, and I was like, oh shit, and then I kind of realized I had been inside the strip club that you guys were shooting.
Oh, was that the one in Savannah?
Yeah, it's that really shitty one.
No, I never went there.
Which one did you guys shoot
it's
at?
bleak.
Well, I wasn't on set, so I didn't. You were there, but not for
It's
that
in
day.
Savannah. It's called,
But it was inspired
it's
by
one
that.
in Savannah.
Because we filmed in Savannah, and so the whole thing was actually written to be Savannah, because Luke had lived there for a year, and I'd lived there for 5 years. And the thing in Savannah, and you see it in the movie to some degree, but is that they can't have strip clubs right in downtown Savannah proper or the city limits. So the city's on the water, and you drive across a bridge to South Carolina. And as soon as you drive across the bridge, I don't know if you guys have been to Savannah or not, it's like a fucking like swamp. It's like a marsh, like nonsense, like just total blackness. There's no like lights anywhere. There's total. And if you drive like a mile down this like 2-lane road, there's these weird ass fucking buildings on either side of it, and they were strip clubs.
It wasn't my college, because there was you couldn't have strip clubs in this particular area, this county of Virginia where my college was. But as soon as you crossed into the next county over, they allowed them. So it was literally like as soon as you crossed the county line, there was Piggy's and Fantasy Lounge. Like,
those
beside
are good.
They give you a lot of time to have to consider your life as you're driving out down this highway with this destination in mind. Then you see a building that looks like some place you'll get knifed, and you go in anyway.
Oh, they looked so gnarly.
No, but
rough.
boobs. So,
Hey,
I never went. I mean, I would drive by them because they just passed the law that you couldn't smoke in Georgia, and so I would drive to South Carolina to smoke in a Waffle House.
Any of Georgia?
Well, like in bars, but I was like writing it. I was in film school at the time, so I would go and write stuff in a Waffle House and chain smoke cigarettes there. And so I would drive by the strip clubs, and it was like fucking terrifying. But that was when we started talking about the amateur nights or the Siren stuff. It was like, well, what if they go to like one of those places, but there's an even deeper level, And so it was all sort of based on the sort of visuals of Savannah. And then luckily they got to actually shoot it there. Not Bruckner, sadly.
Yeah.
But Greg Bishop, wonderfully.
And is it weird to like you guys, your first movie that got seen, I guess, was made for Chiller, right? Like that was the intent for the show? Is that how that works?
Well, we thought we were writing like a $15 million studio movie. I'll be quite honest, because this is our first paid job. Yeah. I mean, this was like they paid us, non-WGA rates, which, I'm not going to quote any numbers or anything, but it's like to us, it was like, holy shit, someone's paying us to write a thing. And then we were like, so what's the budget here? And they're just like, oh, no, just write it. And so like, I mean, that first draft is not that different, but it definitely was like,
we did lots lots of outlines with Bruckner, and then we wrote that draft, and then Bruckner sort of got pulled away to try and do other things, as you know, it's on record as, you know, Friday the 13th. And
right, because he was going to direct. He was always going to be the director until late, right?
And they foolishly did not go with his version, and still haven't made anything.
Right.
But so that's when, you know, Greg Bishop stepped in. But there was like a long period after Bruckner left where we were sort of like, I guess nothing's happening with this. And then all of a sudden, they're doing it for Chiller TV. And they pretty much just used that script.
We never got a single note from anyone because like there was like a shakeup at the company right after we turned in the draft. And so it sat untouched for 3 years until Greg signed on. And when he signed on, it was like 6 weeks before shooting. And we just like did changes for Greg to make it work. But like there was no like development,
no producer coming in to be like, you'll know she can't rape him with the tail, and you know.
Well, that's a good note.
So we got away with a lot of stuff.
That's actually one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, we got very lucky with that one. Ultimately, even though the process getting to it was like absurd because it just, I mean, for years we were just like, what the hell? And like we were trying to scheme of ways to like buy it back from them or like get someone else to buy, you know, like can we take it to another company or something? And you know, ultimately, I think we're very happy with how the movie turned out.
Sure.
So.
But I do have a fun memory of sitting in the computer lab with all my high school students and Gmail messaging Ben, like trying to defend why that scene had to be in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice contrast right there.
Those students knew what I was doing over there.
No, thank God he never got arrested. Like, because, you know, I mean, it's like we joke about the screenwriter Google searches, you know, it's like.
Well, my other favorite memory is it was Christmas time and we were researching a project that never actually happened, but I was researching.
The Charles Manson stuff?
Yeah. Well, everybody.
That ended up being one of the other projects that Bruckner was going to do, but not with us. It's totally bizarre, yeah.
But all the other teachers are there having their little holiday, you know, as a teacher work day. So there's all the other teachers, you know, having some holiday cheer and eating Cheez-Its together in the teacher workroom. And I'm by myself Google searching Charles Manson.
Well, my favorite screenwriter Google search, and I need to access my full history and get the best one, but the best one, and it pertains to a different project, was I Googled, can you make a rope out of human hair?
And?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Ultimately, it takes a lot.
Surprisingly strong.
Yeah, you need a lot.
It speaks to experience.
Text her.
No, I swear I have Googled this for some reason before. And it was not, could you form a rope? It was, could you use it as dental floss? Which is even weirder.
Of course you can do that, Bekah.
And I'm trying to figure out what the contect was, but it came up. I have definitely.
The context is Virginia.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's all I know.
I'm pretty grossed out right now.
Well, let's get to Super Dark Times.
Could it be used?
Because we are also going to talk about adolescent or coming of age movies in horror. But because this film has, certainly got, there's a Stephen King-y vibe to the setup in the world of the character, especially given it is in theaters right now. These kids are a little older, probably a couple years, maybe 3 years older.
When I watched it, I was trying to determine that. I think that our kids are probably closer to the age of like the bullies in it than they are to the kids themselves.
But Stand By Me was the first movie that kind of pops into mind. I mean, it's still very different, but it's not like a straight homage to Stand By Me. But tell us about the genesis. Also, another person, a good friend of yours, who we also went to school with, directed it, Kevin Phillips, who does a great job with the movie. And I don't know, this is one of those films that I think the voices of the characters are so authentic in the first half, like the buildup of who they are, that you completely buy in to the dialogue. So talk a little bit about coming up with the movie in general.
Well, I guess I'll start and then we'll see where it goes. So, I mean, this is like I'm almost embarrassed at this point saying it because it sounds so ridiculous, but it actually was a dream that I had. And that never happens. I don't usually remember my dreams, or don't have them or whatever, but I woke up.
Everybody dreams.
I know that every time you say you don't have dreams, someone's like, well, you just still remember it. It's like, well, whatever. It's the same difference. It doesn't matter. They're just things that went away.
Does it happen?
Is it the same difference?
I mean, tree falls in the woods, man. I don't know. But it was like one of those things, like I woke up and like in the shower remembered that I had a dream that was about kids fucking around with a samurai sword in a field somewhere. And I think in the dream, one of them got decapitated. And I just, I thought it was something that I'd read, one of those weird, international news stories where it's like, in Japan, the woman hides in the guy's apartment for 4 years and he doesn't know. I thought it was weird story of these kids, one gets decapitated by this. And so I spent a day Googling it to see and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I was like, well, it must have been something of an original thought or just something that occurred to me. And then brought it up with you.
He brought it up to me. We were trying to come up with what our, next spec would be early in our career before anything had been shot. He was trying to explain this to me. I was like, dude, we're not making that. Like, that's no one wants that movie.
No, and they didn't. And he was right.
But you were right, because eventually you wrote it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this was like 2011, I think. And eventually, so we talked about it, and then pretty quickly, because so Kevin and I were friends in college, roommates in college. We both were in class with Elric. Eventually, we co-directed together.
Everything you knew
in one class.
Yeah, one class. Elric just
I was on it.
Filled the whole thing. But so it was always like Kevin and I were like, well, one day we're going to make a movie together, and when we got out of school, it was like, well, we're not going to be co-directors, because I kind of learned I don't really believe in that unless you're like brothers or married or something like that. And it was like, and Kevin was naturally gifted with cameras, and I was theoretically gifted as a writer. And it was sort of like, well, I'm going to go write. And then that's when Luke and I teamed up, and I was like, you go be a cinematographer. And like, once we've gotten our shit together, like we will make a movie. We'll figure out what that is. And so once we had this idea, brought it to him, as like, maybe this is that movie. And, he was on board with it as well. And so there was
you pumped out a draft in how long?
6 days. Okay. I was dog sitting, and I just did nothing but write it for 6 days. This is like maybe 2012 at this point. And then that sort of very quickly, like we had Kevin attached, and then our friend Jet Steiger, who produced the movie along with some other producers eventually. But at the time, it was just the four of us. And then so that 6-day draft was like a 90-page script. Everybody liked it enough, and then Luke took it for like 3 months or something and actually, made it good. But the structure was there. The ideas were there. It needed to be fleshed out.
How do we pop out the characters and relationships and,
which is where a lot of the stuff you're talking about, the dialogue and everything.
And dialogue might be a bit of a lost art. Like when I go to movies, it's not usually for the dialogue anymore, because maybe I've lost interest in the dialogue because there isn't great dialogue.
Sure. So
I tend to go for what's cinematic. This luckily has a mixture of both. It opens very cinematically. It's very much kind of Lynchian in terms of the opening kind of sequence to kind of hook you. But then it's once the kids start talking that, because with it, I really like it, but the dialogue is sometimes trying too hard to be funny and edgy and like keep the kids cool. And this is so organic. I was like, oh yeah, I knew that kid. I was those two kids. It starts, this isn't really a spoiler, but it starts with two kids kind of talking about a teacher and other students who they'd like to fuck on a what are they called? A yearbook. And I was like, I totally remember doing that. And so there's just like, it wasn't a nostalgia trip. It was something else. It was more just like, yep, totally relate to this world.
And that was a big part of it was everybody sort of putting in their, I'll cop to it that the yearbook thing was me, and that was a particular memory of in my friend and I. Sorry everyone, I'm much more woke now.
Let's name names about all the people that you chose. Let's just do that publicly.
Just that
I think you're going to feel a lot better about it.
Yeah. I mean, the teacher was my wife.
Missy, if she's listening.
Hi, honey.
Special call out.
We didn't start dating until after I graduated, by the way.
Yeah. Not creepy at all.
Not at all. But yeah, so is everybody sort of wanting to, what's that memory from your own life that you want to put in there? And, Ben and Kevin and I are all, slightly different ages, but all grew up in that time period of the 90s. And it was everybody really trying to be authentic and share that stuff. And we ended up with this amalgam that hopefully feels pretty universal because it's a lot of people. But in terms of even the decision to set it in the 90s, I think was a lot of just wanting to make sure that we weren't telling anybody else's story, the texture of when and where you grew up is specific to you, and to really, it is, a lot of it is universal. So I don't feel like kids, the actors, for example, brought so much life to it. And I think that's a great combination of there's real young people, sort of working with the lines and expanding on the lines at times and improvising lines written by people who were young a long time ago. And so you have this sort of mixed perspective, but there's something about, I think if we had tried to set the movie in modern day and speak in the voices of teenagers today, it wouldn't have felt as authentic.
Well, and that's exactly where it started. It was like once the sort of idea of these kids and the sword and the stuff like that, it was like, well, how do we write that? And it's like, well, we'll just set it in the time. It was not like, because I've said it earlier, but like, I'm not a particularly nostalgic person. It wasn't like I wanted to relive that, and nothing bad like that happened to me either. It was just that I knew that we could at least the texture and the details and the stuff. And, like he was saying, like the crew, I mean, the whole crew was a lot of those people we went to college with and stuff. So, I mean, most everybody was in their 30s ish, you know, kind of thing. And so when you do that, you're inviting the whole crew to bring their shit too. So like the prop guy brought bagel bites, like the script says snacks. And then we get to set and he's got a bunch of bagel bites, and that fits with the thing. Is like, cause he thought, oh, what would I have eaten when I was, you know, so it's like everybody gets to sort of learn little details of things fit in there. And like, you know, it's hilarious because the actors, like there's stuff where they reference the movie True Lies. And I think like only Elizabeth Cappuccino, the lead actress in the movie, had ever seen the other boys had not even seen True Lies. They didn't know what it was. And she had older brothers, so she's like, oh, I remember watching that with my older brothers and stuff. And it's like, so they were like making jokes about things they didn't even get. Like the youngest kid makes a joke about Highlander in the thing, and we just told him to say that. It was like an improv line that the first AC came up with while we were shooting. He's like, oh, you should say like, I'm immortal like Highlander. And I was like, oh, that's great. Kevin, can you say I'm immortal like Highlander? He's like, oh, that's great. And I go, you know, hey, Sawyer, you're going to say I'm immortal like Highlander. He's like, what is that? I'm like, doesn't matter. Just say it.
Man, that's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that you could be born in the year 2000 now and be a 17-year-old. My brain just goes, what? Like, that's just...
And this kid was 14. And but after we called cut, he was like, he'd done it a couple times. And he's like, oh, that's that show my dad likes. Oh my God, it's the guy with the sword. I was like, yeah.
Wow. Oh, man. Feeling
Now,
old.
one of your guys is from Ozark, right?
Yeah. Charlie Tahan.
He looks really familiar.
He was the he's been acting since he was a child. He was the little boy in I Am Legend. With Will
Really?
Smith. Yeah, if you go
Just
back
to
and
bring
watch.
up, take a drink, everybody. I Am Legend seems to keep coming up on the show.
Is that another?
It does not go
Did it
away.
happen already?
We talked about it last
Oh, I
week.
didn't listen to last time. Okay, dang.
Somebody's not been listening to our
Yeah.
show. Somebody fell off.
I'm
Well,
wearing the
then.
fucking shirt,
Yeah,
guys.
he is.
I wore the T-shirt to the concert.
Yeah.
From that guy.
Super fan.
Which is kind of a lame thing to do unless you're
Is
in
it?
Japan.
It kicks ass.
Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome.
We all respect it.
Okay, I've been out here.
So we'll come back a little bit to like where people will be able to see Super Dark Time. But let's talk about coming in. Not that you necessarily were inspired by coming of age horror films by any means, but I thought it fit kind of well as a topic because this film I don't even know if it fits too comfortably as calling it a straight horror film. It's got unease, it's got dread. I think horror fans will like it a lot, so I'm not worried about that.
That's been what's interesting is that it was not necessarily designed to be a horror movie, but it has been received best by the horror, the horror press.
Who are
in the same way Stand By Me is a horror film.
I think horror fans are more capable of mixed genre stuff, sort of processing it, and that the ending is gonna go there, and it's not hopefully not a detriment to the storytelling to sort of get to a place that is that heightened and operatic, and visceral. Where I think, certain critics sort of feel like, oh, but the beginning was so good and the characters are so nuanced and they're doing this and then they just go full genre and it doesn't work. And I think, genre fans are able to recognize, I would rather be seen as a really great genre movie, even if that means, you fail a little bit as a straight movie. Yeah.
The sort of more made like the indie art house kind of reviewers, if at times seemingly not been happy about some of the mixed tones like he's describing. But to me, it's like, I don't know, is Silence of the Lambs a horror movie? Like, what do you guys think?
It's a constant debate because some people say in order for it to be horror, it has to have supernatural elements.
Oh, The Strangers.
Most people,
is totally a horror
I know,
movie.
like we would all
Let's
say,
see. Does it have George Romero? Does it have Roger Corman in it? All right, it's a horror film.
Yeah, I think that your four hosts here, and I'm including Turk, even though that he's gone, would say that of course, Silence of the Lambs is a horror film. But I've heard people say
no, me too.
I kind of don't think it is.
He doesn't think so.
Do you think that it is a psychological thriller?
Fuck no.
I mean, psychological thriller isn't even really its own genre. It hasn't got the rules of a genre. There's like elements of it.
It's more like a grouping of movies that you can. It's like Polanski movies and shit like that you can do, which were valid.
Sure.
Let me put it this way: if that film wasn't nominated for Oscars and it wasn't well received, everyone would call it a horror film. Yep. It would always have been a horror film.
And that's what I don't like. That's what I don't like about is something. And this is going way off on a tangent. That's nothing to do with our movie because I don't even think it's a debate. But the whole is it a horror movie? And I don't like that because it's typically once something gets acclaimed in the mainstream, and that's like to me that's almost like ghettoizing the thing. That's like, well, as long as like nobody else likes it, and it's so as long as it's shitty enough that it doesn't cross over, then we can keep it, and like then we don't want it anymore once it's and they're like, come on.
I think it's something about for me. It's the procedural aspect of Silence of the Lambs that sort of keeps it from being horror when it's somebody that's so a policeman investigating a case
There's a lot of serial killer thrillers like that, though.
But see, but
I don't know where they fall. I don't know
Seven
exactly
is
where
a
you put
horror
them.
film.
That was the next one I was going to. Seven was definitely an inspiration on Super Time. So
I talked
really?
about Animorph 2 weeks ago, and that's a horror film, and they're all very procedural. But
Animorph? What the fuck's Animorph? I don't know.
Animorph. I talked
Willem Dafoe.
about
talked about it.
Animorph is a series of young adult novels about people that can turn into animals.
Somebody's paying attention.
Photos of
better
it's
than
a
me.
cat, then it's a person. No.
Okay,
So coming of age.
Yeah, coming of age.
Well,
Yeah,
that, Silence of the Lambs kind of is, even though she's a little older, but it's kind of her coming of age. Because a lot of it's about her childhood repression with the lambs, so,
Yeah, and that was Silence of the Lambs was definitely a big
I think it's fair.
inspiration. Yeah.
Well, to me, the most, I don't know, influential is not the right word. The one where it was noticeable to me the most, and this before, something like Stand By Me, is, and I confess I haven't seen the film yet, but it comes out today, so I will have the opportunity to see it. But it sounds like River's Edge, which is one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah, that was in there, yeah.
And to me, that's just because, you get Crispin Glover, you got Keanu Reeves, a lot of people. Iona Sky early in their career, and it is a group of kids. When I was young and looking for cult movies, kids act a certain way in movies that isn't very realistic. And that one to me was, one of them kills their girlfriend, and the rest don't really know how to react emotionally or anything. And that was the one that wow, that's probably, if that happened in my high school with my friends, this is probably how everyone would be.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean, I saw River's Edge in college in reference to a different thing that we were thinking about, possibly even the one you mentioned earlier. I can't remember. But I saw it, and it definitely, because of the sort of Twin Peaks connection and this sort of that vibe of, I'm a big David Lynch fan, and I don't know if you would call yourself that or not, but obviously we talk about Lynch a lot.
Yeah, sure.
But it's definitely that sort of undercurrent of normal suburban or small town life, and that River's Edge felt like, and of course I think Tim did episodes of Twin Peaks, didn't he? Yeah. So it all felt tied in that. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
That's my pick.
Well, what about you guys? Let's start with some of the ones you guys were talking about, because we talk all the time. I already know every movie I've ever seen.
Well, so do we, apparently.
Yeah, I guess. Hey, you're borrowing some of my movies.
I mean, I will say, I am. I'll give you back that tenebrae soon.
Do you have your list here? Because you did homework. You should sit it in between us so I can look like I did.
And also, coming of age can mean a lot of things. Because, in my opinion, yes, we usually go to the young kind of kids and stuff. But I think of Nightmare on Elm Street as a major coming of age for Nancy.
I would say part two.
Yeah, part two.
Part two.
I mean, they all are. But I think Nancy. I mean, I really think it's a character who blossoms and changes, and it's really that to her that's a coming of womanhood.
For me, and it's debatable. Obviously this is playing with horror tropes. It's not full on horror, and now's maybe not the best time to praise Joss Whedon, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer was on the air in 1997. I was a sophomore in high school. So was Buffy. So that was when the show came on. And so up through graduation, first year of college, that year after college where things are kind of fucked up and that was happening to me. So these are characters that I grew up with. And in terms of coming of age horror, where the dramas of coming of age are personified as horror tropes and explored through that, there's nothing's really meant as much to me as that experience of having those 7 years of my life sort of parallel that. And so in terms of storytelling and my own sort of insistence that metaphor not be sort of separate from the story, but actually be told through the story. So you don't have to have an alcoholic in the genre space. You come up with some genre conceit that can talk about alcoholism so that they are one and the same. It is all coming from Buffy.
Interesting.
Which was something else that we bonded on early, because I was watching that because a girl I had a crush on in middle school was really into Buffy, and watched that when it was on the air at that time, and it definitely I was probably 14 or something, and that's coming of age while watching coming of age, which is probably a theme to some of this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think so. But what about you? What was your...
God, I was thinking, I mean, you did Nightmare right there, and that's it. I don't have a really good answer, but kind of the first three Nightmare movies all do it in different ways. Yes. And I know that you can talk for years about Nightmare 3. Yeah. I really do love all three. I think the first three are phenomenal, and I really do love the second one. And I know that it's probably been, you guys have talked about it off and on.
Yeah, I don't know if it's...
Do
we have a major fan here, of the four of us? Is there a number two fanatic? I don't think so.
No, I don't
the four
think
of us
so.
now.
Well,
here he is.
I don't know. I mean, I think I didn't see that one until Luke showed it to me, probably when I was 19 or 20. I think because Luke had an apartment before all of us because he was older, and we would go over and watch like, movie marathons and stuff. And it was like, I'd seen however many of the Freddy movies, and I hadn't ever seen the second one, and he was like, oh, it's the gay one or whatever. I was like, what does that mean? What
does that mean?
And then you see pretty quickly what it means. And it's kind of like, it's fucking great. It's like really, I don't know.
It's the scariest, the most disturbing and darkest.
It's I mean, like you're consistently in a place of like you can laugh at times, but then it gets really uncomfortable really quickly in a variety of ways. It's not just like uncomfortable in the like, it's kitschy or they didn't intend for, it's like, no, it's like he's scary in that one. Yeah. He's not funny at all, except for, I guess, at the pool party. There's like, isn't there like,
he's sort of like swatting at people like a
or when
cat
the guy's like offers him a beer or something, isn't there like some funny reaction? I can't remember.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
like some little bit of
seeing him full light at a pool party, just kind of, has
doesn't run around. Freddy bite her ankle at one point?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what's so fun is it's one of the rare sequels that breaks the rules. Like they set up these rules for the character, and that's both the benefit and kind of downside to that movie is, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense because he's supposed to be in the dream world or whatever. So there's something scary about not sticking to the rules. And that's why for diehard fans like me, you get to 3 and you're like, okay, we're back to the rules.
Oh, no, totally. And that's why I like it as a triptych in that way.
But the panic, the true night, it's like the whole movie is kind of a nightmare as opposed to we're jumping in and out, and the nightmare is his body and contained within his body as it's changing and wanting things he doesn't understand. And
I might compare it to the second Amityville movie. Yeah. Like in terms of like, where that's like the Italian one, right? Like
it's the one that becomes a whole different movie in the second half.
And there's like a weird incest stuff.
Second half.
We could have a whole other conversation about all the different horror movies we pitched on that we'd never gotten a franchise job. But that was our first one was Amityville. And so like we'd seen it like before. We're like, okay, we're going to watch fucking all of them before we pitch to Jason.
Oh God, I hope you didn't go past
you can't even get past, like, you can't even get the one with the lamp.
Was this with Bruckner at all?
No, this is before Bruckner.
This is right before.
Okay, this is like 2010 or something like that. This is like way back.
I had a phone, not to diverge, but I had a phone call with Bruckner because I'm originally from Long Island. Where
it's great, nice.
And basically he's like, look, I think I might do this Amityville horror. Yeah. I've only seen whatever, the first one or whatever. What do I need to sit through all these whatever? And I was like, no.
Just Dollhouse.
All you need is the house with the windows and make it a really effective.
The first two are good.
Yeah.
The third one,
third
one has some cool shit, but it's
got Aunt Becky and Meg Ryan. I thought it was
I like the whirlpool thing in the basement. It's not whatever, but
it's also not coming of age, guys.
No, but to take it back, that Freddy 2 is as much of a diversion in the best, fun, weirdest, most uncomfortable way as is it Amityville Possession is what the second one's called, I think?
Yes.
In like when we watched, because I watched the first one, it's like, oh, it's kind of like The Shining Junior, but you watch the second Amityville and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And you see all like the Italian names or whatever in the credits and you're like, okay, it was like
what's going on.
But like what you're saying, Rob, it's like a totally different, like it's not even like what is really the connection, or you can piece it together later, but I kind of like that. And so the Freddy movie, Freddy 2, feels like an actual dangerous movie that it like you think you know all the rules, especially if you've seen the later ones and you go back and you're like, well, this was like the Wild West as far as they were concerned, and that makes it feel really. And it's like that kid, I mean, you could debate whether he's a good actor or not, but like the terror on his face and like when there's
a lot of just the terror and panic that he's constantly.
When it's
what is it when Freddy comes out of? Does it come out of his friend or his girlfriend?
No, he goes to visit his friend and it comes out of him.
Yeah, and it's
he fails to make out with his girlfriend, runs away from her. Goes to Grady's house, and then Freddy pops out.
The little Freddy pops out.
Oh my God! Yeah,
it's great.
No, it's great, and I don't know. I don't.
But 3 is a little in terms of coming of age. And focusing on one of the best ones to articulate sort of to really dive into the disparity between the adults and the kids. Sort of, and it does a similar thing. Oh, great.
Sorry,
but phone calls coming in.
But that each kid sort of has a different issue with themselves and with the adult world, and nobody understands. And so in terms of the sense of isolation of that, of just really hitting the metaphor of the parents just don't understand, Nightmare on My Street, Will Smith of it all, is really strong and maybe never stronger than in the series.
And the characters all have really distinct voices, which sort of goes back to what you're saying, that's a movie where, like, I mean, it's like
except Joey.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is he the one that doesn't talk? Yeah. Okay. Good joke.
but he gets to have sexual desire.
Oh yeah, Joey's the hearing one.
And it's like that other horror movies would do this sort of cast of like, you know, like Jason Takes Manhattan has like a similar thing, I think, or something. But it's like, it's always shitty. And in that, the actual difference, like, oh, it's the cool guy or she's the punk one or whatever, like, it actually works in that way. And like that's a movie that, like, as much as you can look at it as like fun and kitschy if you want to, I guess, it is like a well-written, well-conceived,
Chuck Russell
multi-character ensemble film about a high concept thing.
Yeah, it is a good team in that one. What about Bekah? Did you have ones? And it could be ones from your childhood too. I'm curious.
Yeah, I listed a bunch, and I went in a couple of different ways with it, like ones that I'd seen recently, ones that really impacted me when I was a kid. So I'll start with ones that really impacted me when I was a kid. So I'll start with Something Wicked This Way Comes. So yeah, that was a big one for me, which I saw right as I was coming of age. And also it's about kids coming of age, kind of like their discovery of evil.
What is that? I don't know if I know.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's based on a Ray Bradbury story.
Okay. Which I need to fucking read.
Yeah, the movie,
that sounds
really
so
falling in love with Bradbury right now.
The movie, it came out, I want to say late 70s. And it was one of these that, like, you could tell, like, my third grade teacher was really just kind of sick of us for a day and was like, here's this movie. Plopped it in, and I was in third grade when I saw it. And it's got this scene where these kids are in bed and they feel something under their sheets and they pull the sheets back and there's spiders all over their legs.
The spider scene was, a callback to Super Dark Times and the True Lies stripping scene. As a kid, the spider scene in Something Wicked This Way Comes was a scene I would just watch in isolation over and over again, like just the spider part.
I've never heard about this. Okay.
It's terrifying. And so I still have a poster of Something Wicked This Way Comes in my living room.
Awesome.
It was that important to me. And so, yeah, that was definitely like one of the big coming of age ones for me.
I really like, when I was thinking about it, I think Christine really works really well.
Yep.
I mean, all of King, right? I mean, Carrie's obviously
Carrie.
There's a subgenre of Stephen King that is just coming of age.
But there's something about Christine, just this guy and his relationship to woman, but through the car and jealousy. I don't know. There's something about that film that I think really works well.
Well, I think, because I've interviewed Keith Gordon a lot in the past, and the appeal to him as an actor is like, you literally get to play this giant arc. You get to go through every aspect of kind of becoming a man is all represented in that movie. That's a good one that I didn't even think of.
Yeah.
I just thought of one. That you'll probably have a lot to talk about. I don't know if you've talked about on the show before, but Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One of my absolute favorite movies of all time, and one that I saw in college. I had literally a 12-inch TV in my kitchen that just sat on the kitchen table, and I would smoke inside the house because you're in college, so you just do shit like that. And I would just watch movies like chain smoking during the day, and I watched that movie off Netflix, rented the DVD or whatever, didn't know what it was or anything like that. 2 p.m, scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those ones that the just leaves you with the mystery the whole time and the feeling of unease and unsettling. And I can't even really say why it's scary, but it just is.
Well, it's because it's for the exact reason, off air in between when you guys came in, we were talking about Mama, how the director,
Mother,
is out there right now, kind of telling people the symbolism of his movie, which we both said that seems like a mistake given that, part of the mystery of what makes Lynch movies so memorable. But that Picnic at Hanging Rock's a great example. Peter Weir's not going to go around telling people why it's scary. Yeah, well,
the author had that whole, the whole. I don't know,
no, I don't know.
The
missing chapter.
It was based on a true story.
Well, it's like a fake. We did this just the other day where I pulled this up and was reading it out loud to Luke because it's weird. They basically said it was, and I don't know if it's like how Fargo said it was or something.
The Blair Witch of its time.
Yeah, that they lied and said it was a thing, but it was a book at the time, and then at some point the author either had already written or wrote later an additional chapter that was published in later versions of the book that completely explains everything.
Oh, weird.
And it's fucking crazy. The explanation is totally insane.
After this, tell me, because I don't know anything about
I want to know
It's
too.
really, really interesting, but it doesn't ruin the movie because I can still watch it and do still watch it and enjoy it. But it is definitely, it's weird because
Peter Weir didn't know.
Yeah, Peter Weir was that was not part of what I was doing. But I think it works to some degree. But
aesthetically, it's a very haunting looking film, very mysterious. It's got the these little girls and their school uniforms in the middle of nowhere, Australia, and it's just got this mood.
And it's daylight, which is another thing. And that was a lot of for Super Dark Times, because it's like we knew that it had to, like, our movie had to take place after school, like, because kids, that's when you have the time by yourself. And so, like, a movie like Picnic at Hanging Rock, definitely, like, you go back and look at that and go, like, how do you make something scary at, like, high noon? I mean, like, the sun's, like, blinding, and they're walking into those rocks and stuff, and it's just existentially terrifying. And that's so there, I got one.
Yeah, nicely done. Nicely done. A little pick
Very nice.
What'd you guys, and we'll keep moving around, but what'd you guys all think of, because it came out recently, I guess, to me, probably somebody will be like, that's 12 years ago now, but when I saw Let the Right One In, it's one of the only movies I've seen in the last, like, 20 years where I was, like, instantly felt while I was watching the theater was like a classic movie. Like, I was like, wow. And as in terms of a coming-age story, it's really quite
That's a good one,
incredible the way certain plot points kind of change what you're watching. The little girl, when we find out certain things about age and so forth, where you're like, oh, this is interesting to call this a coming-of-age movie. And how that kind of shifts. And I think it's really just a stunning piece of work.
I think it's fantastic, and I actually think it's the horror sacrilege here, I guess, that I think the Matt Reeves remake has some better scenes than the original.
I think it's also really great. I think if it had been like 5 years later, I would love it a lot more.
They rushed it, but I think,
very well made.
They're both really, really good. Yeah. All the stuff with Richard Jenkins in the remake,
that's what you don't get in the original.
But the original it's just a world. It's a whole bubble of a world. It feels kind of like what I think your film does when you get into it. It's a whole world. I believe everything in it, even though it's dealing with the supernatural. It does it in a way that's grounded completely.
It's totally supernatural.
And the cats.
And the vampires.
Well, I have one anecdote about Let the Right One In that I don't know if I've told this on that other, I don't remember now, whatever, it's terrible. But like when we first got in, when you go to these meetings and stuff, like, your general meeting, you're a horror writer, and everyone tells you, like, oh, we want to do something like this. Or, when we first started, it was like right when the Saw movies were ending. So it's like, we don't want to do torture porn, guys. Yeah. So if you have any torture porn ideas, take them somewhere else. We're like, okay, fine, that's not what we're trying to do. And then it's like, like, so what do you want to do? And they always have some really, like, most of these companies, because it'll be like, a company that makes like art house movies, but they want to make a horror movie like every year to hopefully like cash in some money. So they don't want to, like drop like Nightmare on Elm Street. They'll be like, well, at the time they were like, we'd like to make something, elevated, like Let the Right One In. I'm like, you want to make Let the Right One In? Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I never said this to anybody, but this was my feeling every time. It's like, so if I walk in here and I pitch you a movie about a child future serial killer that gets in a relationship with a castrated boy who is a vampire and is in a pedophilic relationship with another serial killer who's an old man, and then he locks him. It's like, that's what you want me to pitch you? You're telling me the Fox Searchlight or whoever, you tell me you would make this movie? No, they don't, you don't say that to them. Yeah. But that's my favorite anecdote is that the movie's fucking amazing and everyone loves it because it is beautiful and it's incredibly well made. But at the core of it, it's an incredibly fucked up story. Oh, yeah. That, like, most people are scared if you, like, lay it all out for them in that way.
And you don't focus on the core because they get you at the emotion. Yeah. You're not thinking about the story. You're
it's a beautiful love story about kids, and one of them's a vampire. It's like, but like, he's standing, like, looking at, like, he wants to kill people.
And the good news is we get another thriller / horror film from that director this year with The Snowman. And I'm a big fan of that book, so
I'm reading one of Joe Nesbo's other books because that Vacation House I was on vacation last week, and I stole a book from the Vacation House because I read the first 2 pages of it. It's the one that's on Nemesis. I don't know. It's like
busted now.
And I just I'm not a big like pulp novel guy, but his books are just like boom, page turners.
I can't put it down. I mean, I stole it.
I really love them. And then Snowman particularly was my favorite of them. So, I mean, Fassbender doesn't look quite right. The character should be a lot more grizzled than maybe Fassbender with a big beard, but I'll take it. I'm with you.
Well, I'll take Fassbender with a big beard.
Yeah. Well, who wouldn't?
Has that happened? Has he had a beard?
I don't think so.
He must have had a big beard and something. Anyway, any other ones jump out, Rob?
No, I'm not nearly as prepared for this as I should be.
I made lists, guys.
Yeah, Becca's got like 800. Let her call out.
Well, Luke has a bunch of them too. With the ones that I thought kind of spoke to me as a coming-of-age female, because
there's a ton.
Yeah, well, there's actually not as many as the guy ones. What I was looking
at. We felt the exact opposite.
While we were finding those girl ones.
See, because I could say like Ginger Snap's teeth,
The Witch,
Jennifer's Body. No.
Oh, Jennifer's Body.
The Witch.
No.
What?
There's not coming of age.
The witch?
No, like she's discovering like evil shit's going on, but in no way is she discovering
I
sexuality.
think that's like kind of a metaphor for the
Yeah, I thought that was what the
witchcraft.
whole movie
Being
was
free
about.
from the repression of religion.
When she
father-
frees herself at the end, and I don't want to spoil the ending, but I
Okay.
thought that's what it was.
Maybe
it's just my reading.
Maybe. I don't know. That one never spoke to me in that.
Let's all tell
I
the
love
one woman in the room
movie.
what she's supposed to think about things. Everyone, go.
Okay,
Is this my
guys.
mansplain time?
So, also The Craft was the big one. When
Okay,
I was
sure.
Oh,
in high
yeah,
school,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was like a
Good
huge
call.
one for me. Phenomena
Yeah.
was surprising.
Yes,
That's on my
to
list.
me.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, too.
That was definitely when I was
Favorite
younger.
Argento movie.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I loved that one when I was a kid. Stoker surprisingly won.
Love that movie.
Yeah, Stoker's perfect.
Which I absolutely love it just as a film, and it's beautiful. But once I started thinking about it, it really is a coming of age film. And I mean, even though
Absolutely.
that she's turning out completely evil, it still is a coming of age film. So
Oh, yeah.
That movie was so. Everyone slept on that movie. Like seriously, I'm so glad to hear you mention it.
beautiful.
Yeah, I fucking love that movie, and I saw it twice in the theater.
How many of us put it as our number one that year?
it was my number one that year.
But
couple of us,
if you
yeah.
look at it, grossed like $6 million in the domestic box office. I know it's not like
Yeah.
the business guy that quotes numbers, but that's just representative of the fact that not that many people saw it.
Yeah.
And like that movie's fucking great. I've
Watch it with
probably
Shadow
seen
of
it
a
like
Doubt.
15
It's like
times.
the same movie. It's so fun.
Well, there's that.
It's
Yeah.
just fun to see that because it's fun somewhere.
Who would
It's
have
not
thought that the teenagers in this country at that time weren't dying for a remake
know.
of Shadow of the Doubt?
Yeah.
Joseph caught on the
fucking-
teen idol. What's
you know?
going on here, guys?
Another one that Elric I know has seen that actually I think you gave me your copy to watch the first time, Valerie and her Week of
hell yeah.
Wonders.
Very
And
much,
literally her Week of Wonders is her getting her period for the first time, but suddenly
with vampires.
Yeah, suddenly she's able to see all these
Oh my God.
vampires in town and the lecherous priests and all this crazy shit.
Let me ask you this, Beck. Do you understand that movie? Because I can't tell how much of it's like translation issues. Like they say, she calls things weird things, and like I literally don't like. I love it because the imagery and the tone and the feel. Like a friend of mine that was staying with us a couple years ago told my wife and I about this movie, and I was like, this is already my favorite movie, and I haven't even seen it yet. And we watched it and fell in love with it, but like. I still can't tell you what is fully happening.
Oh, see, I didn't have that. Like, I definitely saw it as, okay, we see the opening, we see her kind of going about her day, and then we see a single drop of blood fall on a leaf.
Okay.
And then, so now she's got her period, at which case things transition. The next thing that we see, she's swimming with her classmates and they're naked and she's singing differently. And then, it progresses.
So the weird,
We
the
don't
guy
have time to educate you here, Ben.
No, but
If you can't understand the movie. We can't.
Hey, but I want to get something out of this experience
Okay,
too,
that's
and
fair.
I think that's I'm going to watch it again now and appreciate that more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's definitely like an earring thing that happens.
Yep.
in
What's
part
the
of
one that
it,
you showed
so.
at Jump Got Blood on Satan's Claw? I feel like has that
it is.
quality. And
I
it's,
definitely
seen that
think
one.
that one has as
It's
well.
okay. I thought that was
It's not
interesting.
available in the U.S. yet. I think it's about to release from somebody.
but if Blood on Satan's Claw is, then The Witch definitely is because they're very similar.
Yeah, they actually they are. They
So
are
one
very
goes with the
similar.
other. We'll go because I think you've got a bunch.
Yeah, I want to jump in on some of the, just I had like, I compartmentalized
prepared.
them. Yeah, into different sections.
This is meaningful.
And the female sexuality one was like a big one I was noticing was, so to add to Becca's list, there's The Company of Wolves.
Oh
is
yeah,
one
that's definitely
that
one.
Transformation is a big
really
part of it,
love.
yeah.
All that,
All of
there's
it.
menstruation stuff and grandma stuff and, being devoured and all that stuff. I mean, it's Angela Carter. Who's, so you're not going to get away from the symbolism there. Excision is one that I really love. It's a coming of age
I
movie.
still haven't seen.
Which is weird because it's made by Ricky Bates, and you look at him and figure that he would not make this amazingly poetic thing about females coming of age, and he did.
Yeah, that character is one of my favorites in horror, and that performance is really good. I mean, it's weird because it feels like it's like a John Waters movie or something. But
It
then,
does,
That's
but
what we
it's
talked about.
so...
Yeah,
But then it
darker, more
turns
serious.
into like stuff that looks like Tarsem.
That was Rob's favorite of that year. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was a big fan.
the ending is my goodness. That
God, I
ending.
gotta watch that. That was the other one that when my manager called me from the airport at Sundance to tell me about Bruckner, that was the other movie he mentioned, and I still haven't
wow.
fucking seen it. I feel like a jackass.
You also, Raw, you'll have to see, which
Raw's
I like.
great.
Yeah, I need to see that one.
I liked
and it's
Raw.
also very similar, and like it's actually directed by a woman, unlike a lot of these movies. So, I put Teeth and Phenomena. There's a Japanese movie called Stacy.
Oh, that's the one about the zombies, where when you turn a certain age, you can be infected with this virus.
Oh,
that
you told
turns
me
you
about
into a
Well,
zombie.
when the girls turn, it's an epidemic, and when the girls turn, 15, 16, 17, between that time, they'll experience NDH, which is near-death happiness.
Yep.
This moment of perfect bliss, and then they'll turn into zombies. So the society starts to tell the parents, go ahead and kill your daughter before that happens so she doesn't turn into a zombie. And there's like commercials where the teenage for razors for teenage girls to cut themselves, and they're all blinged out with like the cute little stickers and things.
Yeah.
It's a strange
I need to see
movie.
this one.
It's dark and it's very satirical and it's humorous. Like it almost feels like a trauma films at times.
It does.
Right.
It does.
Sure.
Did you guys prefer, like, as you're young watching horror, did you prefer watching female protagonists or male protagonists with these kind of movies? And to you as well, Bekah, because I'm curious what we identify with, because horror's been one of the few genres that have often cast female protagonists, even knowing that they were aiming for male audiences without having fear of that. So identification was a little different.
It depended on the genre and the film because, like, obviously for something like The Craft, I identified with the females. But when I was watching Fright Night, I got really pissed off at Amanda Bearse's character because she was so kind of wishy-washy and weak.
So it's just good writing, good characters. But it's funny when you look at films, are you especially, I think more so in coming of age though than anything else, because it's like, are you identifying with things that are strange? Like when I saw Carrie for the first time, I was a little too young, and the opening scene was so other to me that I could not, I would have heard of what a period was, but to see it laid bare like that was a pretty shocking thing to see when you're young. But it's also kind of amazing. It's an amazing thing to witness that sequence and, you know, what that character becomes.
I don't feel like, if anything, when I was younger, I think I was just looking for like just touchstones, like anyone recognizable was probably more of a thing. Because I definitely, like, even when from our first writing together, we were always writing, you know, typically writing female leads. Super Dark Times is sort of an anomaly in that way. But
we kind of didn't luck out in that Siren and Super Dark Times, the two movies that we've had actually get produced, and they're the ones that have like boys behaving badly and then something bad happens.
Normal for us at all.
Stephanie's a little girl there, right?
Yeah.
The one that hasn't come out yet.
And then like everything else we've written was, and I think that it probably helped that horror movies do typically, like seeing Halloween and you know, all that stuff. Like when you're a kid, it definitely plays into it, but I don't remember, because most of the time the guys in horror movies are kind of shitheads anyways. Yeah. So it wasn't like identifying with those people.
As a preference, it was ensemble. So it was all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. It was, and then like just a weird, you know, again, I was doing it young enough and owning it young enough to where like we would play these things. So it'd be like, we're going to play Nightmare on Elm Street and I'm going to be so-and-so and you're going to be so-and-so. And it was like me and my best friend Scott and his little brother Joey and then my sister. And so we want, you know, like, okay, you be the girl. And sometimes it was weird because it was like, uh-oh, Scott and Sarah, your two characters were a boyfriend, girlfriend. But, you know, so we'd like to, you know, sort of choose characters to inhabit and relate to in that way to, you know, to use our imagination sort of in conjunction with the movies we were watching. Yeah,
the role playing. There's one I want to recommend more than...
You Be the Girl was the play of my childhood. The amount of times I was forced to either be Scarlet or the Baroness. That's the only two you get to fucking pick between, and all I wanted to do was be
You played
shipwrecked.
Gone with the Wind?
Yes, Gone with the
Wind.
Wind.
Oh, wow.
They played Gone with the Wind at that age? That's wow.
Did you grow up in Virginia? You said?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
She grew up in the 40s.
No, but, you know, I mean, I grew up in Georgia, so, yeah, Gone with the Wind.
My sister got to be Sigourney Weaver. She was all right.
It was you either got to be it was always the Baroness, and all I wanted to be was Shipwreck, and nobody would let me be Shipwreck, and it was just awful.
There was one I really wanted to put forward because I really think the first 20 minutes of this is actually one of the best coming of age films made. The rest is just kind of more like an art piece giallo thing, but that's a mare. The opening, I always show people the opening of this because the first it might even be like 15 minutes.
Wait, which one's that?
A mare it was like kind of the giallo, not spoof,
it's really
but
colorful.
It's basically kind of taking all the tropes of giallo and making a modern day.
Have you seen this one?
I've got it.
I haven't seen it.
But the opening is very different because it opens with the little girl in a house and it's set in the past, and it's just her observing death and her family and them making love, and it's just pure style, but it's unbelievable how tight and just well made it is. And then it becomes her like.
Is that the couple, the directors?
Yeah,
the Strange Color of Your Bodies. Okay, I saw that one. Okay, so I'm not so far off.
But even if you didn't watch the whole thing, because the rest of them still cool, but it's more like an art thing than it is a movie. I say that loosely. It's still a movie, but the first 20 minutes is like as good as anything I've seen in the genre. It's like, wow, like they totally get what it meant for this little girl to witness these things, and then how that affects her sexually 20 years later when she's
that's cool.
an adult, and how it kind of makes her kinky and all these weird
That's
things.
pretty rad.
It's really cool. It's totally worth tracking down for people who, it's a little off the beaten path, but
I want to watch it.
Nice.
well,
I have 3 more.
Oh, there's more.
I'm going to throw out.
There you go.
Paranorman, I think, is phenomenal for younger kids.
I still haven't watched it.
I haven't
My
seen
daughter
it.
loves it.
Okay.
It's so good.
haven't done it.
Yeah, I know Rob has it.
That's great. I have it in 3D.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did your kids like that one?
They were too scared when it came out, and my wife and I wanted to see it, but we couldn't force them.
How old are your kids now?
Well, now they're old enough. I think they'll actually do
Okay.
it.
This October, it's coming
I've
up.
got a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yeah, Monster House too. Marnie really.
Oh, Monster
digs,
House is great.
Monster House we've done.
I saw that in the theater, actually. I like that
Paranorman's
one.
no more than
Dan
Monster
Harmon?
House.
They're ready for Paranorman
Yeah.
if they can do Monster.
Yeah, Monster House is
Yeah.
about the same, so that one's not bad. On a fun coming of age horror film, Attack the Block.
Great.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I never think of that in terms of horror, but you're right. Yeah,
Yeah, I love
I think
that
the movie's
one.
fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, because it could be sci-fi too. It's somewhere
Yeah.
between.
Yeah, I love that.
And
It is
then
fun.
a coming of age film that I have 180 turned on it. I will still say that it's well made and it's landmark. Eraserhead, where
Yeah.
I used to
Stunted
watch it as this oh, I get it. Marriage is a trap and children are a trap and this is horrible. And I watched it again a couple of months ago and all I can think is, dude, just nut up and take responsibility for this shit.
Man, it's so funny how it changes so much. And to go to what we were talking about earlier, like how easy it is to get movies now. And this is just one of my favorite stories. That so Eraserhead, when I was 16, 17. So my wife and I started dating in high school, and she had a credit card and I didn't. And I found a video store. We lived in the suburbs of Atlanta. I found a video store in downtown Atlanta that had a copy of Eraserhead. And we drove up there and used her credit card to open a membership at this video store when we were teenagers, just so I could rent Eraserhead on VHS. And once I watched it, it was like a dub of a Japanese laser disc or something. It was and I copied it because again, where the fuck else are you going to get Eraserhead? And so at that age, I watched Eraserhead a bunch. And I remember we watched it at her house and her mom came in the room and said, what the fuck are you what is this? And then it's but I saw it again, a couple years ago when, being in your 30s and you're like, oh, it's just about being afraid of being a dad.
Yep, that's all it is.
It's so simple.
Literally, and it's
there's a bunch more shit there, but
incredibly well made. It's still poetic. The soundtrack's amazing.
I love it, yeah.
It's landmark. It's just about being a dad. Just get your shit together and take care of your shit. So that's it.
Well, before I have one. I have a bunch more, but if we're trying to wrap it up, I do want to. Well, I talked about the Stephen King stuff and the subgenre there, and so it's not a movie yet because Frank Darabont's just sitting on the rights, as far as I can tell. But when I read
calling him out,
yeah,
this
come
is
on,
it.
Frank.
This is your big plan.
Take that, Frank. He's a big listener, so take that.
I'll write him a very strongly worded email. I think that'll go over well with him.
Frank Darabont looks up from his computer where he's listening to this right now. He's just like, fuck you.
But when I read The Long Walk when I was in early high school, it brought on it totally, and I'll also end this on a downer too, because it brought on a complete existential crisis. I remember listening to Sonny Came Home playing on the radio, having just read The Long Walk, and in the back of my parents'
What's
van.
the point of going on?
It was I'm gonna fucking die someday. I'm gonna fucking, that's it. So, if you don't, it's a Richard Bachman, Stephen King book, and it's, the future where children are just forced to, they're not forced to, but there's a competition you can take part in where you just walk and you keep walking until you die, and the last person standing wins. And it's great, you won. So it's got kind of a battle royale quality, but obviously played out in super slow motion, and it gets super existential as you're talking to the other people on the walk, but they're going to be dropping next, and one of you's going to go before the other. And that's the whole point of the thing. And it just, at 15, 16, devouring Stephen King all that time, but then getting to that was something in terms of coming of age that was a threshold crosser for me, was reading that book.
Huh. And Darabont has the rights. Is that something you can even imagine?
As far as I know,
He's had him for years, right?
You could,
so.
You can definitely film it,
Yes.
but
you'd have to have a fucking great,
it's really tricky.
Kevin Phillips could do it.
Well,
He absolutely could.
yeah, it's one of those things. But then again, somebody just made Gerald's Game,
Yeah.
which
Which is
I've
also
always
very-
said was
Can't
completely
wait.
unfilmable.
And we tried to do that one too. There was conversations years ago. There's a director that was trying to do it, and we were talking to him about stuff, and it was let's do Gerald's Game together. And but I was like, how do you do it if she's gonna be naked the whole time? And apparently just make her not naked.
I don't think, yeah.
Easy solution, Ben. What the fuck? Like,
just don't make her naked.
Yeah. I saw the trailer because I saw the trailer. I was like, oh man, I'm going to see. I was like, of course she's just like a 90. What the hell? Why did it took me years to get to that point?
You can't make her naked the whole movie, guys.
Well, I thought that was just, I mean, there's only so many ideas in that book. It's like, I kind of thought that, like, you know, it's like you got to keep the core components of the thing. I wasn't like not being creative about it, but you know.
But while we have you here, because so we don't want to end on a bummer because you're such a depressive. Favorite? I want to know your favorite King adaptation because just before you guys got here, Rob was talking about how we're all kind of discussing how sometimes the most faithful might not actually be the best King adaptations, and sometimes it's the tone. And people always talk about, are you adapting the tone and the vibe of King, or are you adapting?
Well, what is always missing is the melancholic sense of futility. Like the melancholy fatalism of Stephen King is something that always seems to be missing, and that's what Long Walk has in fucking spades.
Did you feel like the new It got there some?
Definitely, yeah, for me, and that's why, you know, sort of bristle at people like, oh, it's not scary enough, and it's like, you know, but it's like, but I gave a shit.
Wait, did somebody say the new It wasn't scary?
Oh, that's the big thing going around.
Big debate online for sure.
Saying it's not horror because it's not scary. It's like, oh my god, really? We're going to judge a horror film by whether it was scary?
Well, my priorities.
I have a really gross metaphor for what that's like, but I won't.
Yeah, because
it's like that's like saying it's not porn because you didn't come or something. It's like, come on, like it still happened on the fucking screen. You're the problem. Like
that's true.
Wow, okay.
That was gross.
I'd rather just cut to black on that.
Yeah, I'd say that's the end of the show, guys.
That's Ben's shirt. I'll have SP or die. You can have.
But it has to be in context, though. It's the thing. I don't know. I get so sick of these Twitter going, everyone like piling onto this. Yeah, it didn't scare me because I'm 33.
Yeah.
The original, it's not even. I don't even know if it's very good. The original one, but it scared the fucking shit out of me as a child.
Context is everything when you see a movie. My God, it's like everything.
My students thought it was scary.
Yeah,
they're my college students.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw it, the theater was crawling with teenagers. I don't know if when you guys, but I saw it at the Vista like 2 days ago or on Sunday.
Well, that's I told you I was walking by the movie theater and I passed a gaggle of teenage girls and they were like talking and I overheard them and she's like, and then when Georgie at the end, like I was crying and it was great, fucking great. Like let's have a reaction other than fear at these movies because like Ben said, you know, I'm 36 and so I can still get scared, but it's not, you gotta be extraordinary to make that happen. So if a movie's only trying to scare me and it's just somebody walking down a hall saying hello and I'm not scared, you've kind of wasted my time. But if I can laugh, if I can cry, if I can feel a little something, then the movie was worthwhile whether I got scared or not.
Well, because things should be good movies.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everything should be a good movie if possible.
Things should be good movies.
I should come. Yeah, the Ben Collins.
Well, no,
that's the back. That's the back of it.
Oh, yeah. That's not bad. You can sell it at like Panama City Beach or something.
I like that. That's pretty
but I mean, like to be horror, it's an objective definition. It's like, I don't know, is there a demonic clown that changes forms and terrorizes kids? Guess what? Bing, bing, bing. That's a horror. You check the box. Oh, yeah. Is it good though? Is a whole separate question. And sometimes the quality of the movie, especially depending on where you're at in your life, might come at the expense of it being purely a terrifying experience. But it's not, if all it was just like nothing but jump scares, would that be better? Like, why is that? I don't know. I don't.
And I think we sometimes have to go with people that we aren't just our hardcore horror fans, because I sat next to somebody who was covering their eyes many times.
Oh, yeah.
Our friend Dick told us his wife would hold up her hands over her face. That means somebody is being scared shitless out of this movie.
There was a 7-year-old in front of me in the movies, like a child with her family.
Wow.
I say 7 because I guess she was tiny. Like sitting in her dad's lap watching
this. But then again, you know,
but she was scared. All over at that movie.
We would not take Marnie now, but I would say I can see her in like 4 or
how old is she?
She's 4 now.
Wow,
but I can see her in 3 years.
Couple months.
Because she's already at that like point where she's like she's seen every Godzilla film. She's seen all the Universal monsters.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
No,
this has relatable characters being eaten.
In 3 years, I bet.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Wait, what year did the original
91.
91, you said?
90.
Okay, so I was born in 84, so I was 6. Wow. You remember like the TV week, the TV guide that came in the newspaper? They had like Pennywise was just a face, just like a headshot of him was on the cover of the TV week that week. And I remember like going into the living room and like reaching up to the top of the TV to take it and just to look at a photo of his face and then get scared, put it back, and run away. It's the thing I was talking about at the beginning. Like, I wanted to see it, but so I didn't even see the thing. And I would like draw pictures of Pennywise on like the church prayer requests. I probably looked like that, like again, like the most scary, because it's just like during church when they're talking, I'm just drawing clowns, and like I made my parents tell me the entire story of it at age 6 because I just like, what happens? What's the clown? Did they kill the? It's like, well, he's not really a clown. He's like this big spider
they get
thing.
lost on the way out of the tunnel, son.
He was kind of a lobster, and
I've still never seen the whole thing because it scared me so much. And actually, this is a fun anecdote that I think you'll appreciate particularly. So in Super Dark Times, there's a scene where they go to a birthday party, and early in the movie, they say that the birthday party is just going to be chill and it's going to be people watching movies. That line got in there because that was a real birthday party that I did go to that was at a girl that I was friends with house, and we actually watched it. And I actually got up, like it was a bunch of us like laying on a bed or sitting on the floor like, 13-year-olds do or whatever. And I faked like I was bored so that because I got scared and didn't want to, because there was girls. It was like one of the first parties where like there was unsupervised, this girl guy hanging out. And I was like, I'm going to go skateboard. This is lame. and laughed because I didn't want all the girls to see me get scared.
I think that should be a scene in a movie right there. Like,
no, I know. I mean, we were like, there was some debate, I think, about putting that in there, but it made more sense to make it like the party becomes a more social party in the movie. But literally, like in the movie, it's describing a party where I skipped out on watching it because it scared me. That's just a funny anecdote.
But to answer your question, Elric, probably Cujo.
Cujo's great.
Well done.
And that one really holds up. All right, Super Dark Times. Yeah, I don't know if is it out the Friday?
Out today.
Yeah, it's out today,
Or
right,
is that the right day?
September 29th?
When is
Oh, no. So
next Friday.
Yeah, so a week off.
Yeah.
Well, but when does this go up? So I guess I don't
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. But if you were sent a screening link like we have been, you're fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
the rest of
I think you have like 5 days to watch it.
Get a podcast, guys. Come on, get a podcast.
Yeah, that's all you gotta do. We'll send you whatever you want.
But yeah, it really has my
VOD October 3rd. So it's certain theaters, a lot
Limited,
in Texas for some reason. Here in LA.
Yeah, there's the Lamley, North Hollywood, and LA, and then random.
And I would encourage this as a big screen film because I mean, you could watch it either way. It's not going to be hurt at all by the small screen. But I do think the visuals are great. But I also think laughter. I think some of the lines you would still enjoy at home, but in a crowd,
it's really
actually
fun.
evoke laughter.
I think I've seen it like 10 times with audiences now or something, and it's I'm still not bored of it because the audiences are really fun.
You
So
want
if
to hear
get
them
the chance
laugh and you want to hear them wince when they start wincing.
Yeah.
But great job. Like seriously, it's a
Thank
movie
you
I
so
just
much.
truly
Thank you.
love, and I'm so happy that you guys have made a good film.
Well, it's a dream to be on here. Like,
this is,
like I said,
that's cool.
Long time listener.
Kinda surreal.
So this feels like a tick in a box.
It's like I used to listen to this washing dishes, so I hear you guys' voices while I would like wash dishes, and now I'm.
That would have been a lot of dishes in prison. A 2-hour lot of dishes.
Oh yeah, well, I'd slow it down on purpose.
Oh yeah, nice.
So you can understand Kane.
Make it last.
Wash one dish, sit it, let it dry it by air, wash another.
Yeah, exactly. And we're at Blumhouse, so eventually you'll have a Blumhouse movie out one day.
Yeah,
we'll announce that when it's
It'll be
happening.
soon. It's happening.
When they're ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.